from the government, and I'm here to help.
Take a look, it's in a book.
Members of the community use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda.
Let's watch Figure It Out.
Welcome back to another great episode of We Figured It Out. That's Matt. I'm Michael.
That's me.
I was waiting. I was like, say something.
Say something.
And
We're
we've got
podcast.
we've got our boy Brandon back on. He's here to talk today. We're close to October. You know, it's hard to believe it's been a whole year that Israel, it's funny to say, a whole year that Israel's been fighting, but come on, how long has Israel really been fighting? Yeah, quote unquote fighting, years. And so we're going to roll into something, you know. He's always got a surprise for us. He brings the receipts. He brings the whole presentation. And that's, I mean, it's what Matt and I like. If anybody listens to our podcasts, we're out trying to talk about a certain specific subject at a certain time, and we like to bring up certain things about it. And if you're not bringing up the facts to back it up, then we're probably not going to listen to you. So that's what we're here for. Give it an extra ear, right? There's a right side, there's a left side, there's an up, there's a down, there's every in between. So Brandon, kick it off, man.
Try to focus on that in between.
Yes.
That's where I'm always coming from. I'm always trying to define, every time I get on these new shows, somebody's like, what's your background? What do you do? And I'm over here always trying to best refine it. And I was like, I think the best way to describe it is an informative journalist. Because I try to hear both sides as opposed to just, oh, that's just Fox News, or this is just Newsmax bias, or that's CNN, it's just lying news. And instead of doing all that stuff, I'm literally just going, you know what? I don't care about your parties or whatever. I'm literally going from a biblical perspective / centrist perspective, showing you as best I can both sides. Unfortunately, one side, your story is not passing the smell test, and that's kind of what I'm bringing here today. Is just going, this doesn't align biblically, it doesn't align historically, and as Christians, we should be a little bit more savvy as to what we are observing in the world, because if we don't, we're going to fall prey to the great deception. So, is share screen already activated? It looks like okay. We should be good to go. Let me bring that up.
Absolutely.
Can you see?
Oh yeah.
Perfect.
I love this too. I love this. You can see it right here. I'm a tattoo guy. This looks like something that somebody would be tattooed. Not me, not me, but
this is the top 3 of my favorite little AI Bing generators. They really nailed what I was looking for. And as the title states, no such thing as a holy land. I think that's something that a lot of Christians are not getting, that even though we are away from the Crusades, we're still doing a modern reboot of the same thing, and we're still already deluded into the mentality that we have to still go over there. We still have to go and fight. It's still like a righteous cause. It's a sacred land, and it's over here going, And I'm going to be doing 2 other episodes, One Nation Under Satan, and then the other one's going to be, God's been divorced.
There's not even a reference of America or quote unquote US or anything you want to call us in the end time. So I mean, right off the bat, people should take that into consideration. Oh, you think?
There
okay,
is.
Okay, all right.
And that's what I'm going to do. One Nation Under Satan. This book that I'm reading, I'm going like, you guys, like, again, what I love about the stuff that I dig into is I have the hunches, and then God directs me to buy a particular book. Usually they're expensive. I buy the book, I read the book, and I'm going, okay, you just filled in all the little, I had a hunch, but it just cements everything perfectly. So when I explain it to folks, you'll start going, oh. And as I said, a lot of my stuff is interconnective, because if I try to do all of it at once, we'll be here for like 8 hours. Don't want to do that to you guys. However, it is a little lengthy, but what in my defense, we're doing it kind of as a memorial to those who are innocent and have lost their lives. And also as an FBI disclaimer, the clips that I am showing have either been played on the news and or are being used for an educational purpose. I'm just throwing that out here.
Let's roll. You know what? If Joe Rogan can bring some bullshit mysticism on for 4 hours at a time, let's bring some fucking 3-hour biblical shit, right? Let's do it.
That's exactly what I told folks, is that I try to be like the biblical Joe Rogan in the sense of, let's
do
not
it.
talk about all this random stuff that's getting people distracted. You're not really learning anything. Let's talk about how can I make the Bible come alive and more applicational in my life,
Exactly. Let's roll. Let's fucking
For
roll.
for instance, Baal worship, Canaanite cannibalism that had to come from somewhere.
Hmm.
Highly suspected to be with the Canaanites, like the giants used to do. And then, people being followers of this were like, well, this is a great idea. Or they had a little bit of their blood. Whatever version there is, it's a little bit murky, is the best way to define it. But we have works like Michael Heiser and Gary Wayne that have given us a rough idea of what they believe and how the occult thinks. What I've tacked on with my stuff is, connecting the symbiotic perspective of enlightenment of how to achieve your own godhood status in the occult perception of all of this. So if you ever saw the movie Venom from Marvel or the Spider-Man movie and the Venom character within that universe,
Absolutely.
the concept of, oh, an alien from another race and it symbiotically possessed another thing to host, very similar to what they believe in Hollywood druidism.
Hmm.
And that is why the pentagrams or the sigil of Astaroth is what is on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
The black goo,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Or it's a
All of
black
it.
blue surrounded by a red star
Hmm.
pentagram. Rothschild. And then the reason I say that, because Rothschilds means red shield. Ashtor means star, and I'm going to presume that there's a little bit of something there with the Roth meaning red again. So it means a red star. And again, what do we see in the Hollywood? Again, do I have cemented proof? No, but we can kind of look at the symbolism. We can kind of speculate with the ceremonies that they do, and we can align it with the Bible to see if that has any credence. So when I'm explaining this, I'm like, could be wrong, but does it look like there's enough evidence here to kind of give a little bit of a, you know,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
want you to be, but dang, that does kind of, that's what I'm trying to
How
do.
many leaves you got to turn over?
Right. And in this line of work, it's a lot of deity telephone is lifting up, going all the way back to the Babel. Languages were confused, but the idea, the symbolism is still what unites the occult. Now they've infused this within the church, and a lot of us are going to be doing, as I'm going to explain, I'm going to first show the history, and then I'm going to be showing how they are weaponizing, and I'm not going to go into the American aspect, but how they are weaponizing the sleeping bridesmaids to be the wielding the swords, which is one of the best things for the devil is they don't care so much about the sinner. What they like is a sleeping bridesmaids. Your adversary, the devil, walketh about as a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. Somebody who's a sleeping bridesmaid, somebody who's straying from the herd, somebody who's not in the word. You do not understand it. You're going to be susceptible and gullible, and then therefore the devil will weaponize that because that is his favorite, is using some of God's favorites. Like again, go all the way back to the Garden of Eden. What did he do? I want to corrupt your most favorite creation.
Yep.
That is his ultimate goal and end game, not so much the sinner. They're already lost.
Yeah.
So, understanding this little tier of the skull compass and square, sorry, compass and square of Freemasonry. It all goes back to the pharaohs of Egypt that stemmed off of Nimrod's bloodline and dynasty. From there, the light order, the dark order, so black and white, checkers. Frequently, you'll see terms within Catholicism like the bishop, or in how they had everything organized. The fiefs were kind of like the states affiliated with the Catholic Church. It's never really separated off of the Roman Empire. It was more given to as to fiefs to kings, and the kings would always kiss the Pope's ring. It all went back to that.
Yeah. That's a
Um,
little creepy.
yes, but that's what I was doing in this book. I was going, wait a minute, so you just did the same thing. You went overseas, but it's the same thing. But again, I can't. I'm not going to go into that. But it was really an interesting reveal. I literally was highlighting and squealing like a kid. We have to understand the Khazars. And again, I never go after a J word because, again, I like saying the U word because U tree worship, Hermetic Kabbalah tree. If you don't know what that is, go Google it or watch my King of the U's episode. If we are going ethnicity wise, that is the other half. So we have Rome, Roman Catholic, which is the first beast, and Revelation, which is Vatican. And the Khazars are a group that came down from Russia region. They had a little bit of the Mithraic cult with them. And might be what connects into the Tartaria theory. Whether these are descendants of giants, like you had one group that went up, allegedly, into Ireland, And this is where the redheads of Ireland, oh, a ginger will steal your
Yep.
soul. Giants used to be known for red hair.
Hmm.
Emerald Islands, Emerald Tablets, kind of gives a little bit of a. So
Yeah.
the other group, I'm suspecting, because of what I was reading in this other book about Mithraic cult, they were part of this, I think, this Tartaria thing, and they came back down. And this was what formed the Khazarian aspect. I'm going to be reading a whole slide on that, just particularly that. And they were also practitioners of the Kabbalah. The other half, more so for Gentiles, was the Knights Templars. So this is how they started recruiting into more getting the Gentiles to basically be plus one cousins. So what we see modernly with a lot of Masons in the US, how we're always sending care packages over there, that suddenly both opposing parties are agreeing on sending money over there. Why? Because you're essentially giving your fiefdom packages over in servitude to your lords, the main hub. You know what I'm saying?
Oh
East
yeah.
meets West. This is a Helios perspective of things. Who's Helios? Where we get heliocentrism, the globe Earth. This is what they're believing. And East meets West is what is that doing? It's bringing like America back over to the main world again, which you'll notice um, when you look at the Nile River is very similar to what we have with the Mississippi River. They would name things Memphis. They would name things after a lot of similar towns and regions that were like Palestine, Ohio, Palestine over in the Middle East. They built this whole concept of going, oh, it's just like the old world. So basically, it's a mirror image of itself in the
Hmm.
occult mindset. But how do you unite the world to come back under the fold of Babel 2.0? So I'm trying to, yeah, right? You have to bring the East to come back to the
Yeah.
West. So you needed that separation because then you start wielding them back in to the main ship. How do you do that?
I
Philosophy. So go ahead.
This is going to be a little crazy too because Matt and I just had a kind of like a immigration 9/11 episode, but even to think about that, when you think of Babel and East back to the West, you would almost in modern time need to bring that immigration in so you could tie that back together all within the same culture as
Yes.
one.
Yes. That's what I like about you. You're over here messaging me, and I'm over here like, yes, this guy's already ahead of the game. He gets where I'm coming from with when I'm starting
Mhm.
to talk about this. I'm like, I'm not the only one that's reading my Bible going, there's some stuff here, guys, where you
Yeah.
kind of have to go, is it official, official? No. But when you speculate and you look at the world around you, you're going, am I living this right now?
Yeah. Yeah, we're here right now.
Yes, right here,
Anyway,
right now.
continue
Is
on.
there some other place I'd rather be? Absolutely. um,
I mean, heaven.
right, right. And luckily for the awake bridesmaids, that's what our gift is going to be. For the sleeping ones, this is where you want to watch a show like this. This is a discernment breakdown podcast. So again, Kabbalah, an ideology, half of the Roman Catholic Church, they created Islam. And there was a Jesuit that confessed to this, or at least he gave a pretty plausible case before eventually he allegedly died of poisoning. Whether that's true or not, I'm just saying, it's a Jesuits. We know that they're kind of like, always using the weak thing of always going after how to get rid of somebody. He stated, when you look up one of Muhammad's wives, she used to be like a former, uh, she has some kind of royalty bloodline within the Croatian. I don't know. I don't want to butcher it because somebody's going to pop up and yell it, but it's somewhere around there. And she was basically helping instruct them with how to use all this. Why? Because in order to have a war in the Middle East, Crusade region wise, you need to have an adversary. Doesn't exist until you create something like Muhammad, something like Islam. Something needs to be the opposition.
An
And this book
ideal.
that this book that I'm reading is stating that Sun Tzu was probably not Chinese. It was actually a Jesuit inspired book. And what he was stating is when you get to control the mentality or the opposing armies' thinking and mindset, you get them to do exactly what you want them to do on the battlefield because you're already dictating how they think, how their culture is run, how their society, and this is what they were doing with America. And I was again, as I'm reading this stuff, I'm over here going, so that's the real reason for the Boston Tea Party. Oh my gosh! But again, same, it's the same blueprint recycled over and over. And now they're
Hmm.
doing this in America, where we're all getting divisive. Oh, why would you be supporting the terror from 9/11? It's like, well, I bothered to study the history from over there and not just say that we're the heroes that always fix the problem over there. because we seem to have this mentality where we think we're the Superman and we're actually Homelander. We're the D-bag.
Yeah.
We're the bad guy.
We'll
I hate
help
to
you
break
out,
it
but
to
we're going
you.
to commit a couple crimes along the way.
Right, right. It's like, well, yes, we look good on camera officially to the public, but what we do behind closed doors, it's very nefarious. And if we did understand, we would not be pledging to a flag that has very Masonic ties. We would not be voting because we would understand that our government has literally been playing us since day one of our inception. And we would not be, how do you say, becoming emotionally invested with the narratives on the news with how we handle our everyday society and become volatile. So at a moment's notice, if they want us to become like a Black Lives Matter event, I want you to go start smashing doors. I want you to start going doing this because you put one of your own two people into this thing. Suddenly you get a whole movement. And do those people actually know that the person that's infiltrated their group or helped create these incidents are controlled? No. But what do we hear in the news? And then you hear, well, counterpoint, that's communism, and this comes from this. It's like, well, communism comes from the Talmud. And so, you keep breaking it down, but do people get the full depth? No, and that's what they always do is they skirt around the curtails of the rug, but they never show you how it was weaved in the center. That's the scariest thing. Um,
It's kind of life. It's kind of life,
yes,
right?
yes, it's double speak, the art of double speak. That's a great book to pick up, by the way. Folks are always wondering what books. It's just double speak. Type it in, you'll find it. But if
All
you
right.
kind of want to start understanding the warfare we're in, and you want to understand how these guys play with us, great books to get. That and some other Robert Greene books will be phenomenal reads. Hermeticism is what unites both Khazars and the Romans. It was what influenced the Crusades. The land of the Sisters of Isis was in Switzerland in 1291. It's also where our lovely little CERN comes from.
The Sisters of Isis in
Mm-hmm.
1291.
Mm-hmm.
This is crazy. I'm gonna
You're
take a
familiar?
note on that. No, I'm
Okay, I don't want to
diving
go
into
in full.
things. Yeah, I won't.
Yeah.
I'll dive in more. This is going on the little note board, you know.
Okay. Put it on the red chart for. Um, yes. So, and again, who's the one that guards the throne of the papacy? The Swiss
Uh
guard,
yeah. It
Swiss banks, and you're just kind of going, okay, hold up, hold up,
Yes.
hold up. Is there a
The
little bit more than meets the eye? And again,
supposed to be neutral.
yes. And people are saying, well, CERN is not built on the Temple of Apollo. It's all just garbage. I was like, well, was it an equivalent? Because they want to bring back Apollyon, which is an equivalent of Tammuz. So therefore, there has to be a little bit of a relevance because they are the ones who gave us internet.
It's so funny too. Those same people will go, "Oh, here you are talking about biblical stuff," but and then you can bring up, well, certain, the most famous one is built on a supposed antichrist or whatever you guys want to argue
Hmm.
burial site, and then they go, well, that's just mythology, and it's like,
Right,
well, hold on, that's what you just told us ours is, right?
right.
So
So
yeah.
like allegedly where like Princess Diane died, that's where they used to have a shrine to the goddess Diana.
Mm-hmm.
I was going, well, granted, could be coincidence, but if we know anything about the occult, they like their dates and they like their locations. This is
Yes.
something that's very big with these people.
Mm-hmm. You're not
Um,
worth anything but your time and your date of your death.
yes, yes. So I think that's enough I touched over here. But now, for folks who did not know, because some people will say it's the military-industrial complex, some people will say it's just solely the Jesuits. And I'm showing how it all interconnects. But to give clarity that this is a cousin ideology, their root cause is Hermeticism, which ties this group together. We have the transactions of the Jewish Historical Society. The coat of arms used by the Grand Lodge of England is entirely composed of Jewish symbols. O.B. Good, in The Hidden Hand of Judah in 1936, the influence of the Jewish Sanhedrin is more powerful than ever in Freemasonry. Rabbi B.R. Isaac Wise in The Israelite of America in 1866. Masonry and the Jewish institution, whose history, degrees, charges, and passwords and explanations are Jewish from beginning to end. And in Encyclopedia of Freemasonry in Philadelphia, 1906, each lodge is and must be a symbol of the Jewish temple, each master in the chair a representative of a Jewish king, and every mason a personification of a Jewish workman. And finally, in the Jewish Tribune, New York of 1927. Masonry is based on Judaism. Eliminate the teachings of Judaism from the Masonic ritual and what is left. So I'm stating this because as I'm tying in towards the end, I'm going to explain what the occult's agenda is ultimately with what they're trying to do. Why are they going to war right now in the Middle East? What is significant with this particular location? Because once we understand what their ultimate end game is, as Christians, we're not going to be going, oh, it just means Christ's going to return, because I'm going to show to you what they want you to be fighting for, and you're going to get duped if you do not understand what their end game objective is with what they believe. So, there's some books, because people are always saying, well, you're just taking screenshots from Google. You don't really know what you're talking about. I have bought these 2 books. I'm just showing this as a little bit of a pin note where you guys can, listeners, you guys could purchase it, buy it yourselves. Don't just take my word for it. But the Knights Templar initially arrived in the Holy Land on a mission to reclaim some treasure that was believed was rightfully theirs. According to a modern Templar historians, Tim Wallace Murphy and Christopher Knight, the knights who banded together as the Knights Templar were part of a wave of European royalty descended from Jewish elders that had fled the Holy Land around 70 AD when it was invaded by the Romans. So hold up. You're telling me that when the second temple was destroyed, this group went to Europe and suddenly started prompting around saying we need to go back. We need to go and get that ring of Solomon, which you might note has this symbol on it, the Star of Remphan, which is said to have controlled demonic spirits. It also could control animals. This is where we get the lore for the ringmaster
Well,
for circuses.
me personally, I've always felt like they found something under the Temple of Solomon. It's not written about or anything, it's all speculation, but I'm on the side that they found something.
Well, allegedly, where the temple was built, that was where Adam was created by God. So when you have the second Adam tearing the temple veil,
I mean, why would they build one unless it was on something significant anyways? I mean,
exactly.
you brought that up just a minute ago.
And what do these people want to do? They want to split the atom to create man in their image. So is there something sacred about a third temple that the occult, because somebody was asking another question, another thing, and I said, we're not talking from a biblical perspective, we're talking from the occult perspective, because in the occult perspective, they're interpreting scripture the way they want the outcome to be. Obviously, Christ was not the outcome they wanted to have.
Absolutely
We want to
not.
have our Messiah destroy our enemies. Their Messiah was saying, love your enemies, do good to them that despitefully use. Are you kidding me, bro? Total opposite of what they wanted. And he was calling them out blatantly. And if people understand the word, because what was the name of Christ is the word of God. And that's Revelation 19:13. That's what I'm going to be doing in God's Been Divorced. I'm going to update it with that particular slide because I was like, that's a home run verse right there. Because when you understand what that is, you're not going to buy any of this. There's a sacred holy land. We need to go over there to the sacred holy temple. There's sacred relics. It's like, no, this is all bogus. And this is what they're wanting you to go over there and fight for them. Because after 9/11, first things that we hit when we went over there were mausoleums and museums. So why was that the number one target? I thought we were going after that were hitting us. Why were we hitting historical or places that might be holding special relics?
Mm-hmm.
Again, Crusades are giving us a little bit of a hint. With BigThink.com, also in these books, Knights Templar operated the world's first banking system.
It could,
Knights,
I'm gonna like just from a little bit like of perspective,
yeah,
like you could knock over half of Saddam's palaces with, I don't know, like almost a hand grenade because they were so cheaply built. You got like marble tiny little walls, and then you get like just mud packing, and that it was meant to get done quick, right?
yeah.
But like all the old stuff like that we had pawned, like, dude, they're still mostly intact, but it's insane how quick, like how much differently things are built within the same time periods even.
Yeah.
It's just a front on top of it. Mm-hmm.
Created quickly, and it's like a microwave. Everything is microwave, real fast. Just throw it up, and so over here, like something had to build these beautiful structures because we're not evolving as a species. We're devolving. I'm not sure if most people have caught down to that, but I'm over here like, have you seen how dumb we
Yeah.
are?
Well, that's why they had to bomb the old mosques and mausoleums
Yes.
and museums because they were built correctly. And as Matt said, when he went over there, all this shit that was modern, wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
couldn't withstand. We didn't need to bomb it. You could throw a grenade and take it down. We had to
Right.
bomb the real stuff to hide it.
Right. Right.
That's a good
And
point.
that's part of the other reason why they've created this movement. I was doing a show last night of why they're trying to disprove, like, God didn't really exist or Jesus is not real and blah blah blah. Why? Well, we're already destroying a lot of anthropology and agriculture. That at the same time we're over here going, well, there would be visual proof. Have you seen how much the Smithsonian and the under the Vatican they've had and stuff?
Yes.
I mean, there's cryptid shows for a reason and books out there for you guys to dig into to go, I don't know. There's some
That was
stuff
like
out
one of
there.
the first things the Germans did was start like stockpiling stuff from museums and everything from every country they went to, and like even didn't even keep it in Germany. So
Yeah,
yeah,
they knew. They knew.
they knew.
And again, when people dig, you'll find some reasons as to why we do the things that we do. The Knights Templar were not just skilled fighters, they were also clever bankers who played a key role in the development of European finances. Well, as I stated, who were the Knights Templars? They were a Masonic order, a fraternal order affiliated with Freemasonry. Now, as I've been stating, Catholicism is counterfeit Christianity, which worships the unholy trinity of Babel. So, baby Jesus, who sucks at the teat of the whore of Babylon, also think America. That's Tammuz. He
Mhm.
sucks at the teat of the whore. Who's the whore? The whore is both his grandma slash his wife slash his mom. Very sick family. And Nimrod would be Dispatar, aka Saint Petar, the Latin sky god of the underworld. But how do I know this? Because dis means set apart, saint means set apart. Latin sky god of the underworld. Where do we see Saint Peter? At the pearly gate. There's a little bit already there where you're going, okay. And this comes from the Latin.
Crucified upside down in
Yes,
the
or oh, that's
underworld.
what the upside down cross really means. Okay. But it's basically Sol Invictus and Mithraism merged together for Gentiles, and that weaves them right back into this. And a lot of it, as they've stated, is that it's a sifting out process. So a lot of the lower initiates have no idea what's going on, but they're being good chums, paying their little union dues, as it were. They're basically helping money laundry all their stuff for these big programs behind the scenes. Oh, look, they're Shriners. They're donating to kids' cancer. How could you say that people are donating to cancer? Well, they're also the ones that created the cancer. So, But let's tie this both together to Catholicism. The doctrines of Freemasonry are influenced to a great extent by the Roman Catholic doctrine and history. In 1754, the first 25 degrees of the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry were written by the Jesuits in the College of Jesuits in Clermont in Paris for the purpose of restoring the power of Jesuit-controlled House of Stuart to the throne of England. There was a series of degrees in the Masonic York Rite hierarchy known as the Order of Knights Templar. The Knights Templar was an organization founded in 1118 AD. The Templars received papal sanction as a Catholic order, the Order of the Poor Knights of Christ. In 1128, they recognized as the first Roman Catholic crusaders. The Templars were known as the Militia of Christ. The Jewish character of the Catholic rites of Freemasonry cannot be understated. Albert Pike explains this secret in Masonry in the Doctrinal Bible of Freemasonry, Morals and Dogma, quote, Masonry is the search for light. That leads us directly back, as you will see, to the Kabbalah. Now you again look up the Hermetic Kabbalah, and that traces right back to these particular people and what they put Christ on was a mockery symbol of the Hermetic Kabbalah tree of life. You want to be our Messiah? You want to wear a spiked crown on your head like Helios, Attis, which goes outward like our Statue of Liberty as you know it by? Fine, but it'll be inverted because we're mocking you, imposter. And you want to be like our Caduceus staff? We'll have you mangled up on the cross that look just like that. A mockery symbol, when you understand what they were believing, then you understand what Christ was doing for you on that altar of sacrifice, breaking a spell, because words were said, blood was spilt, and a sacrifice was made. That is breaking a celestial spell of bondage for everybody. Do we understand a lot of that? No. Because we want to find the inner light within ourselves. No. Not how that works.
I mean, it's just simply not about that for us, you know?
Right. And
Yeah.
now you'll note, as I just stated with Islam, what's the Pope currently doing about Lebanon? Oh, what they're doing is horrible. Is it?
Every religion is a religion to God, is what he says.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
That too. But again, what is he really helping the
Now,
problem? No. Is he really getting rid of the interceding, offering himself as an olive branch and to put a mediate peace over there? No. And what do we know about Catholics in their history? They love wars over there. I'm sorry. That's just a historical fact. You almost fought over there
why
for
else would
something
you
years.
put the Jewish state there? I mean,
Hmm.
other than to create conflict until the
Yeah.
end of time.
In a place that's constantly warring and they're going to choose that. They chose that. Okay.
Right. Right. So I am King Bulan, this guy on the horse, the king of Khazaria. And I think Tartaria has a little bit of a connection. How I'm still trying to dig into all that because some of it I do think some people are going to the a little bit too far out. I do believe there's something there that existed, but I think some people are going to the extent of like, oh, we've only been around for like 400, 800 years for the last, and it's just like, not really. No, I don't buy that one. But a landlocked between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea, today occupied by Georgia. And again, we have a place called Georgia in America. Just some, again, geography-wise, kind of makes me scratch my head. But also reaches into Russia, Poland, Lithuania, Hungary, and Romania. In 7040 AD, my Khazarian people felt vulnerable as we had Muslims on one side and Christians on the other side, and thus constantly feared attack from either side. My people were pagan, which made us ripe for invasion by those who wished to convert us. If we convert to Islam, we would risk attack by the Christians, and if we convert to Christianity, we would risk the attack by Muslims. I came up with a genius idea. We all converted to Judaism because Jews had good relations with both Christians and Muslims, predominantly in matters of trade. Our race represents about today 98% of the Jews on the planet. We have no blood connection whatsoever to the Holy Land. Many of us speak the Khazarian language of Yiddish, totally different to the language of the Hebrew. So, you're basically telling me that you're hiding like a wolf in sheep's clothing. I'm one of them. So again, regardless of the full semantics of Holocaust, I'm not here to argue that. Personally, I think it was a small portion, but that's just me. And that's incentivized. Why? Because they wanted that for the transfer agreement in 1933, and I'm going to show you in slides what that is. They wanted that and persecute a small number to get them motivated. Go over here because this is the one place of refuge. Now, if you are literally getting, you're sitting in a sailboat, but you're getting hailed on in the middle of a freaking storm, but somebody says the lighthouse is over there, there's land over there. Are you willing to come with us? Yeah. Are you going to understand that you're basically being infiltrated with some baddies at the same time? No, because you're in panic mode. If you're
Yeah.
running, you're not going to notice what's running with the herd with you. In
Same
this
reason.
folks,
Same reason you're not investigated or interrogated under duress. You know.
correct.
It's
Correct. And
you're
again,
not, you're not thinking.
nobody's going to be none the wiser because they're just like, well, they just ran off into the distance. I don't know what was going on over there. And folks, this is the birth of what we who are awake, and you're giving us the fluoride stare when we're telling you that's the synagogue of Satan. That's just mentioned Revelation 2:9 and Revelation 3:9. Bible it, please. I'm begging you, because if you don't understand what's going on in the world, this will give you a little foundation. Now, something I found interesting was I saw a photo of what was going on in Ukraine. And somebody made the joke of standing in front of Ukraine, and they held a little sign that said Ukraine.
Hmm.
Which, if you're going by prophecy, whether it's true or not, we have that bear in Revelation, like we were messaging each other. And what was in his mouth? The three ribs. Now, whether that's Ukraine and two other countries over there, or if that's Russia and it's supposed to be Lebanon, Syria, and Iraq, before things kick off into World War III, in a revelational. I don't know, but it's kind of making me go. It's either maybe 1, 2, 3 or 1, 2, 3. But where do we see the current things leading up to right now? 1, 2,
It's
and it's like, okay, you're pushing ever closer.
people pushed a pre-meso on it, but then if you're going to say pre-meso, how can you say the Persian prophecies are Iran? You know,
Right, right.
so that's the argument on it that I have. So I tend to believe the latter. Like I was talking with you, it's
Mm,
today.
yes, and again, as well as they're always saying was like, well, that Nero was the Antichrist at that time. This is what that's referring to. But true. But what do we also get? We have Daniel's vision in chapter 2, and we constantly get Antichrist constantly recycled the same thing because that's how the occult thinks, for one, and two, that's the ultimate end game. Just like the Garden of Eden, the lie never changed. What I'm going to try to explain is what the end game is in their mentality and how they're weaponizing Christianity to do it for them. And ultimately, when you understand what their end game is, you start looking at the world completely differently. Maybe you'll understand my post now. And I'm not going, oh, I'm defending the. No, I understand biblically what their end game is going to be and how they're deceiving the church. Um, Manly P. Hall, I don't have to get into all this, but he says when the human race learns to read the language of symbolism, a great veil will fall from the eyes of men.
Yeah, that the Moloch sigil there is that.
That's the sigil crest of Ukraine.
I do recall seeing this on Ukraine's flags.
And it's part of a little Khazarian tag back too. So whether there's a little something there, because what happened first? It was Ukraine, which again, I was sitting around on the verge of the end of COVID as they're wrapping things up, looking at the screen as I was at Planet Fitness watching this invasion take place, where they're sitting around on the border, and I'm thinking to myself, we're getting off the verge of an international pandemic, and they're feeling spry enough to invade another country, and then literally a year, like a what, year and a half later, year later, this thing goes on with Israel, and then now literally almost an anniversary full cycle goes by, and they're going to go to war with another country. It's just gradually being point, 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 point. So trajectory wise, when they hit Iraq and Taiwan, I think we'll be very close or around the same exact time. That's when we're going to kick into World War III. Right now, Trump is doing exactly as was it Truman during World War One? No, that's not Truman. Who am I
No,
thinking
no,
of?
Truman dropped a bomb in two.
So yes, to Truman, it was Roosevelt that made the promise we're not going to go to war, and whoever was the president during World War One also said, "I'm not going to send our boys to war." Trump's now saying, "I'm the only one that can keep us out of World War III. We're as close as we've ever been." And he's saying the same thing. And if you looked at the years ahead, again, Google Images, whether right or wrong, I found it interesting in 2027 after Trump's little bloody ear, they said there's going to be an announcement October 2nd with Trump. And they also
Well,
had in the years ahead, Armageddon 2027 kind of makes me go, I kind of wonder if that's the trajectory we're heading towards.
you look at Revelations right after, like I was talking to you earlier, it talks how no one will want to go to war. Who can make war with this beast, right?
Yes.
And that's
Yes.
exactly how Trump talks. I took everybody's
Same
bomb.
with
Nobody will
Boston.
push their button. We all had buttons, but nobody will push their button. It's
But
like,
see,
okay.
and that's the thing though. And then Israel, like they're kind of sitting over here and just punching everybody in the face with their big brother standing behind them.
Oh yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
just person after person, just like, but it's country after country. And we're just like, okay, don't hit him back. You
Because
know?
Well,
we like
that's what I said. Yeah. I was using the analogy of saying it's kind of like you're on the playground and this kid runs over and he starts punching the littlest kid on the playground. But the minute you go, hey, he looks around and he puts his glasses on. He's like, don't hit me. Don't hit me. I wear glasses. Well, it's like, I don't give a crap about your glasses. You're picking on somebody that's little, and I'm somebody equal to your size, and you're going, just don't hit me. Don't hit me. And I'm like, well, I don't care about your grandparents that were hurt in college. They're using analogy. I don't really care about that. Your identity, little politics. What I'm talking about is right here and right now. You're not supposed to be doing that to another individual. But that's what they're hiding behind, and they're saying, no, no, identity politics. That's the liberal left. That's you.
we tried to point out one time that maybe Israel, as you said, no such thing as a holy land, right? Or
Yes,
so
yes.
as America calls Israel, we use them every time, man, to just land grab. to take what we want, and then we let Israel do it, and then we go, well, it's a part of our ally.
Right. It's a partnership deal. You guys get this, and then we get more land. You guys get that, and we get more land. And again, Masons, aka, and then you have the other side, the Kabbalazis. It's the same group, just a different head of the same dragon, folks. So we already got this out of the way. Now, again, this is one of the lengthy. I have about 4 lengthy ones, but again, they're necessary for relevance. This is part from Europa, I'm told. Again, I don't buy it 100%. I do believe Hitler was controlled, whether it was Jesuit and or Rothschild. I don't know. They always try, and I'm not saying the whole thing is not an interesting thing to watch. I think there's some merit to some stuff, but with this particular clip, it's showing how the little bit of the history of why they got this particular segment of land.
Before you hit play, what do you think, Matt? You think Hitler was controlled?
Oh yeah, for sure.
He was so big into the occult.
Had to be.
Like, I mean, and he kind of just like, I watched an awesome little documentary on basically everything happening during that time. I forget what it was called, but it was made in 1973. But very interesting about like how nobody even realizes like how I think we were even taught in school that he was in prison because of World War One, right?
Influences thereof. Yeah, he was starting to become basically, let's call it a political Gandhi in a Western equivalent of things.
Right. And they had like the night of the taverns or whatever it is in German, where they basically tried to overthrow the government and stage a coup, and he failed. That's why he was in prison. That's why he had my struggle. So
I like to point that out because everybody at some point thinks it's their next savior.
But he was just their talking head, and then and it showed the more and more control that he tried to take, he started failing more and more. He wouldn't listen to nobody. So I mean, once I feel like they had already done what they had wanted to achieve, they kind of just let him go on his own.
Yeah, he went kind of rogue, and he was like, well, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
It's true. Okay.
So whether they extradited him off to Argentina after that, or whether he actually was, I don't know, but it's definitely a little bit sus. And the thing that he was digging so much into the occult. One thing I do find interesting, though, is that he arrested a Rothschild and seized the bank assets. And I was going, did you do a no? Like, they gave you power, then you were like, you know what? I got power now, so I'm going to. And they're like, no, you don't abuse authority, my dear friend. This is not how the game is played.
Absolutely.
Him and Bin Laden are just both kicking it right now.
Right? All right, let me know if you can hear sound. Just give me a thumbs up.
Hitler's final solution to the Jewish problem was creating a homeland for the Jews on the beautiful island of Madagascar off the coast of southern Africa, and resettled 1 million Jews per year under German protection and supervision. The idea of a Jewish homeland in Madagascar had actually been circulated throughout Europe since the 1880s. The National Socialists worked out a plan going into detail for the evacuation of the Jews to Madagascar and for the settlement there. SS Major General Heydrich submitted this plan directly to the Reich Foreign Minister in August 1940. The Madagascar plan was unfortunately scrapped when the British invaded the island in 1942, taking control away from the Vichy France after the Battle of Madagascar. A Jewish Madagascar would have been a win-win solution for Jews and Europeans, and would have spared the poor Palestinians and other Arab nations all of the horrors and wars they would endure after the founding of Israel in 1948. For centuries, Europeans and Jews have had problems living together. The Jews have been expelled from over 100 nations before. This expulsion was not something new. Every single nation where the Jews were given full rights and privileges, they had exploited and morally corrupted the host nation, defiled the Gentiles, and then created uproars against themselves. The Jewish supremacists have of course always been able to put a blame on quote-unquote anti-Semitism. The National Socialists want the Jews to leave Germany, and the Zionists wanted the Jews to come to Palestine to help create the Zionist state. The National Socialists held a conference in Wannsee, one of the suburbs of Berlin, on 20th January 1942, where it was decided on the final solution of the Jewish problem. The original document from the meeting is actually available on the internet, and nowhere does it say anything about killing the Jews. The meeting discussed neither gas chambers, shootings, nor any of other extermination methods.
There was never a final solution plan. That's one of the falsehoods that floats around. Just because the Nazis had used the term final solution, both years before the war and at the beginning of the war, it doesn't mean they ever actually drafted a plan. Even the minutes of the meeting, the minutes that were taken of the Wannsee conference, quite clearly state that the Jews at one point will be released. So there was no talk of any final solution plan there. There was simply a talk of, well, now that the Eastern Front is kind of stalled, we've got to figure out what to do with these many millions of Jews that we now have in our custody. That was a problem the Nazis did feel the need to deal with, but not by creating one giant overreaching plan.
The purpose of the Wannsee Conference was to discuss and plan how Europe's Jews would be deported to the East. Some Jews would remain in Germany to work with road and construction and more. They also decided that Jews who participated in the First World War, all of which were over 65 years old, and all who worked in the industries, would remain in Germany. This has also been confirmed by Yehuda Bauer, professor of Holocaust Studies in Abraham Harman Institute of Contemporary Jewry in Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Transit camps were also created in Poland to facilitate the immigration of Jews. The term Endlösung der Judenfrage, final solution of the Jewish question, was a phrase used by the National Socialists regarding the Auswanderung, emigration, and Evakuierung, evacuation of Jews in occupied Europe to the East, Palestine, and Madagascar. The first to use the term, however, were actually the Zionists. The final solution of the Jewish question is in fact a direct quote from the 1897 Zionist Manifesto. The infamous phrase was being used by leading Zionists long before NSDAP even existed. In 1897, the National Jewish Association, Cologne, published its program called Thesis. Experience has shown that civic emancipation has fallen short of securing the social and cultural future of the Jewish people. The final solution of the Jewish question lies therefore in the establishment of the Jewish state. In 1897, the Rothschild founded the Zionist Congress and arranged its first meeting in Munich. This was rearranged in Basel, Switzerland. This gathering was led by the father of Zionism, Theodor Herzl, and in 1899 he proposed the final solution of the Jewish question and proposed liquidation of Jewish wealth. It is essential that the suffering of Jews become worse. This will assist us in the realization of our plans. I have an excellent idea. I shall induce anti-Semites to liquidate Jewish wealth. The anti-Semites will assist us thereby in that they will strengthen the persecution and oppression of Jews. The anti-Semites shall be our best friends. Herzl also used the term the final solution of the Jewish question in an 1899 letter to the Russian Tsar. I owe my permission to submit the Zionist plan for the final solution of the Jewish question. The Zionist Nahum Sokolov wrote in his 1919 book, History of Zionism, that the progress of modern civilization has come to be regarded as some sort of modern messiah for the final solution of the Jewish problem. Richard James Horatio Goethals was the son of a rabbi and the president of the American Federation of Zionists. He said, assimilation of the Jews must not be the final solution of the Jewish question. The Jewish Yearbook of 5676 states that the British Jews adopted a policy for the final solution of the Jewish question. Even in 1940, a Jewish magazine article quoting Trotsky mentioned the final solution of the Jewish question. Israeli lawyer, diplomat, and scientist.
Well, we don't need the rest of that, but I found something also interesting when they're just talking about the year there. 5,676.
British Jews.
Now, let's say that the world comes to an end exactly at 6,000 years. And on the seventh day he rested, as a day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is as a day. Kind of have to wonder if that was already 5,676 back in 1915. We have got to be getting really close to whenever this
Gotta be real
finale
close.
is, if
Dude,
that's accurate.
and some of these people you just showed in that are talking of this so on liquidation of Jewish wealth
Yes.
before World War II even happened. They died. Some of those people were dead before this even happened and spoke of this.
Yes. And again, how do you
100%
foretell the
controlled
future?
op.
The future, but then the future actually goes down exactly as you're laying out in blueprints. It's because people are following your doctrines, your ideologies. One book that I love, I think this came out early 90s, late 80s. And at first, when it came out, it was anti Semitic. Da, 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 da. Come to find out, the author is Israeli. And two of his parents, they went to a museum, and he felt prompted that he was going to write some books. One of them was talking about how they were rounding up the U's, was based off of the stamp thing, where they had these little tin, I don't know, not like license plates, but they had these little tin cards basically to get a profile on somebody. What's your ethnicity? What diseases have you been through? Have you been through like what's your cultural background? Have you been to and had an education? And every time you had something on there, they would have stamps and this and they would pop out like a little punch card thing. Tickets, please. Just like that, they punch them out and then they would be able to narrow down who's who.
Can you run out of
Um,
room?
right? You would think, but no, they had this actually down, and the guy who owned it was the original owners of IBM. So, but again, anyway, this is his inspiration for why he wanted to write this book. He's like, the Zionists work with these people? And he wrote the whole book, translated in Hebrew, was known as the Havara Agreement, but this is a book you can get by Edwin Black, The Transfer Agreement, confirming everything that this guy just broke out. It's not just, oh, you're just quoting your rope, but you're one of those guys going off the deep end, yeah. No, and on top of it, there was a commemorative coin from 1933 between the Zionists and the Third Reich with the Star of David on one side, aka Remphan, and the swastika upon the other. And the Havara Agreement was an agreement between the Nazis in Germany and the Zionist, again, a political ideological group, signed on the 25th of August of 1933. The agreement was finalized after the 3 months of talks by the Zionist Federation of Germany and the Anglo-Palestine Bank under the directive of the Jewish Agency and the economic authorities of Nazi Germany. The agreement was designed to help facilitate emigration of German Jews to Palestine. While it helped Jews emigrate, it forced them to temporarily give up possessions in Germany before departing. Those possessions could later be reobtained by transferring them to Palestine as German export goods. And why were they talking for 3 months? Because internationally, all Jewish businesses were boycotting Germany. And that was in April until August when they finally came to an agreement. This is why it's called the transfer agreement, because economically, they already were waging war. So they were like, okay, create the problem, create the solution.
So, I mean, before this is before Israel and Palestine were separated and recognized as separate spots, correct?
Uh, well, originally it was Palestine. That's what I'm going to be sifting out with the next couple clips and slides.
Right. So in this, was there okay, cool. I could you're probably gonna answer what I was about to ask then. Like how
Probably,
was
yeah.
yeah, how was there a separation? Okay, cool. We're gonna keep
And I'm
going.
again,
You
I'm,
know, and it's kind
go
of
ahead.
funny because like the whole dynamic of they didn't just want the U's out of just Germany. It was I mean, they basically just asked Austria, like, hey, do you want to be part of Germany? And then Austria was like, sure. And they're like, okay, just get rid of all your U's. And
You can't
then
liquidate it if the from
Right.
one place, right? It
and
has to be the
then
whole.
and then not only that, but France and Britain and everybody voted for a chunk of Czechoslovakia to be German,
Mm-hmm.
like to collectively. So they were in agreement, and that it's not like they were in the dark about any of this. They're
Right.
like, oh, look at how well Germany's doing. They were like a beacon of hope for everybody during
Right.
like those like
A beacon
1933
of
when every
oppressive hope.
well, I mean, dude, the economy looks appealing.
Pretty crappy after
Co-
World War One.
Well, and like, I mean, like not in 1933 though.
Yeah,
In
right, right,
1933, it was swinging now, and like, oh, look what Hitler did for us,
right.
and nobody
And again,
cared what he was doing to other people until
That's
it
why it's
happened
on.
to them.
That's why this sign's
You
on
know?
money here. We're doing
yes,
good. Look at it on.
Crazy.
Let's pass it on the money.
and on top of that, the Jews were offered sanctuary to all the neighboring countries, and all of them said, nope. Why? Well, if you have a Masonic government, well, that's one. But two, it also gave even a more incentive is that nobody wants us in Europe? Yeah. Well, fine then. Why would you want to stay in a location where everybody's giving you the get out of here? So again, you look like the maybe the real Hebrews are now actually getting shoved over there, but at the same time, the Khazarians are going, we just pulled off the greatest thing ever, and we're sacrificing some of the real ones. So actually, again, are you going to literally say nothing happened? I'm not saying again, but I'm something else I found interesting is all the camps that they were saying that the America liberated um, from the Holocaust victims, they were all on the other side with the Soviets. So wait a minute. I know we were kind of having frenemy situations over there. So how were we over that? We weren't. So again, it's another little bit of a
Oh
we
yeah,
know
it
the
was.
Russians are totally trustworthy, right?
It's not what they told us. People died, but not for the reasons they told us, and not
Right.
how they told us.
Into the amount that they've told us as well.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you're just being biased. You're reading biased authors. Well, here's a news clip, literally just about a minute. When you're sitting in a theater and you want to know what's going on around the world, well, there's a clip giving a little bit confirmation that this is not something that's just being made up, and it's not AI.
Two former American vessels carrying nearly 4,000 Jewish refugees arrive at the port of Haifa, Palestine. Jammed like cattle on the rusty craft, the fugitives end their bleak voyage, which began at a Black Sea port. The death of an infant was first blamed on British tear gas, but examination showed it was accidentally crushed and suffocated on the overcrowded ship. All precautions are taken to prevent the spread of disease, as small children debark along with fathers and mothers, all showing the signs of fatigue and illness. The British encounter little trouble transferring the refugees. Mostly the procedure is carried out in an orderly manner, as embarkation for Cyprus detention camps takes place. Cyprus, already bursting with refugees, is preferable to deportation to Europe, as had been threatened.
I dig the Arabic subtitles.
Yeah, what is going on with the music there?
Are we going to get that on the American ones? No, but this is the uniqueness of when we have the internet. Now they're actually starting to ban things like you plagiarize this. I'm like, no, it's TikTok. But now you're saying I can't share things on the internet that's already out there and already has the person's name on it. So if they want to go follow that particular person, it's like, no, you are censoring history because history is anti-Semitic according to the narrative that you don't want out there.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, there's no other explanation, but here's some other photos of once they've arrived. You're saying, no, it's always been their land. And here they had a banner on the side of their ship. The Germans destroyed our families and homes. Don't destroy our hopes. And what are we doing now? We are fighting human animals. They are no rules. We will kill them all, even the kids. And again, a population of 2.5 million. Literally 1 million of them are
they're
kids
trying
under
to
the age of 15.
they're trying
The
to
statistics.
decide that they can. One side's got to be right either way, right? And you have to kill the whole entire other side to be there, and that's
Right.
all that is.
And somebody, again, that's the argument you just made. He said, so wait, you're saying that there's a justification to wipe out the entire, well, they're going to do it to us. So absolutely. The kids, women, children. And again, he started getting into rant mode, but I was over here going, bro, so you're literally saying you turn evil for evil to the extent where it's like, that's literally the definition of genocide. Well, they would do it to us. So we got to do it to them before that happens. Oh, okay.
Talk to any regular person. Nobody's saying that.
Right? Nobody says that. Here's some historical photos of the Palestine transit camp. when you're getting acclimated to a new culture. You know, when they're bringing in the legal immigrants in the southern border, similar thing down here. So, go ahead.
No, that was your.
Oh, okay.
That
That
was
must
your
have been me
slide.
clicking the next slide. All right. Again, this is the next longer one, but I thought I wasn't going to have this, but I saw it and I was like, this has so many relevant details, and I think we'll condense it for folks.
This looks like Mexico, does it not?
Right? It's just like with Mars.
Palestine produced Palestine passports, currency including the Palestine pound, and postage stamps. The colonial police force was named the Palestine Police Force. The government-owned railway company would be Palestine Railways, as well as the Palestine Sport Federation and Broadcasting Service. It wasn't just the British, of course, but also the First Zionist Congress, with their Basel program calling for the establishment of a publicly and legally secured home in Palestine for the Jewish people back in 1897. The Zionist settlers established the Jewish Agency for Palestine, the Palestine Post, the Palestine Office, the Palestine Orchestra, the Anglo-Palestine Bank, the Palestine Electric Company, the Palestine Water Company, the Palestine Mortgage and Credit Bank, Automobile Corporation. Of course, later on, a systematic renaming of the destroyed villages, a result of the Nakba, or catastrophe of 1947 to 1949, entailed the renaming of place names, often arbitrarily, using a revived modern Hebrew language. Indeed, a 1956 committee report of the official Government Names Committee, set up in 1949 by Ben-Gurion, to rename Palestinian towns, states that a decisive majority of the names were determined by mimicking the sounds of the Arabic words, a partial or complete mimicking, in order to give the new name a Hebrew character, following the accepted grammatical and voweling rules. Said longtime Defense Minister Moshe Dayan, Jewish villages were built in the place of Arab villages. You do not even know the names of these villages, and I do not blame you, because geography books no longer exist. Not only the books do not exist, the Arab villages are not there either. There is not a single place built in this country that didn't have a former Arab population. Detractors of Palestinian history, who apparently totally dominate the Western narrative of the region's history, will challenge the legitimacy of the Palestinians' indigenousness to the land by claiming that there was no sovereign kingdom of Palestine before 1948, or that there was no such thing as a Palestinian, a claim made famous by Prime Minister Golda Meir, birth name Mabovich, an immigrant from Ukraine. Palestine, the word used continuously for the land for thousands of years. First documented in the late Bronze Age, about 3,200 years ago, the name Palestine is the conventional name used between 450 BC and 1948 AD to describe a geographic region between the Mediterranean Sea and the Jordan River and various adjoining lands. The name Palestine was widely used by the most important ancient Greek historians, cartographers, writers, philosophers, and scientists, including Herodotus, Aristotle, and Ptolemy. The Greco-Roman Byzantine name Palestine is commonly found in major classical Greek texts, especially the histories of Herodotus, written near the mid-5th century BC. Further, Palestine existed as a distinct administrative unit and a formal province for over a millennium, beginning in the 2nd century Common Era with the Roman province of Syria Palestina. Emperor Hadrian chose the 1,000-year-old name Philistia, the most common geopolitical designation for Palestine used by Greek geographers and historians, long before the Old Testament stories were put together. With the advent of the Byzantine Empire, Palestine was separated into 3 provinces, Palestina Prima, Secunda, and Salutaris. Moreover, these 3 provinces were effectively governed politically, militarily, and religiously from Palestina Prima as a 3-in-1 polity from the 4th century until the early 7th century. As was Iraq, under British rule following the First World War, through the 3 provinces of Baghdad, Basra, and Mosul. As the Rashidun Caliphate began their rule in the 7th century, the name remained as the province of Jund Filastin for 4.5 centuries before being interrupted by the Crusades. With the Crusaders defeated by the Mamluks, the name was revived where it was the land of Filastin, throughout the Middle Ages and well into the 20th century. To provide you a woefully incomplete timeline, a map containing Palestine by the cartographer Muhammad al-Idrisi exists circa 1154. We have additionally a map of Palestina from 1320 by Marino Sanudo. Jumping ahead to 1450, Fra Mauro completes the most detailed map in the world up to that point, showing Palestina. The map of Palestina Moderna et Terra Sancta is published in 1480. Jumping further to the 18th century for Palestina ex Monumentis Veteris Illustrate, published in 1714. In the next century, 1803, we see the Ottoman Jazid Adlas Tarjumesa. In the 15th century Mamluk literature, Mujir al-Din al-Ulaymi refers 22 times to Philistine in his glorious history of Al-Quds and Al-Khalil. By the 18th century, we can see that Palestine as a distinct country was common perception in Europe. In 1747, Thomas Salmon describes Palestine for the Modern Gazetteer of London. And the ubiquitousness of the name Palestine to describe the region is apparent certainly in the 19th century, as these titles show. Of course, Queen Victoria sponsored the Palestine Exploration Fund to explore biblical locations and obtain a foothold in the strategic location. The turn of the Victorian era coincided roughly with the descent into European nationalist conflict, which culminated in the First World War, after which the League of Nations universally accepted the name Palestine for the region, now under British control. And so the British military governor Sir Ronald Storrs established the Palestine Archaeological Museum. Jerusalem's significance historically, especially among the Zionist movement of the late 19th and early 20th centuries, is tentative. As explained in a helpful article for the New York Review of Books by Avishai Margalit, professor emeritus of philosophy at Hebrew University, Margalit points out that the founding of Jerusalem predates Islam, Christianity, and in fact Judaism itself. It is thought that Jerusalem was founded about 4,000 years ago as a city of ritual worship by the Canaanites. Jumping ahead thousands of years, Zionism had ambitions to create a new Jewish society, but Jerusalem was the least appropriate place for the founding of such a new society. Most of the Jerusalem Jews were part of an ultra-Orthodox community of the sort that the Zionists were rebelling against, a community that lived on donations and did not have the kind of productive life that the Zionist revolution aspired to. It is no wonder, then, that the Zionists preferred to build the new Hebrew city in the golden sands of Tel Aviv. Most of the immigrants to Israel, about 80%, settled along the Mediterranean coast, a region that had never been the historic homeland of the Jewish people.
Does that answer a lot of your questions?
Yeah, that's exactly. I was going to ask. I mean, like, we're talking about all these places then, but it's supposed to be that way because if you read things and you look at historical and biblical context, these are the lands of the Canaanites, right?
Right.
And when it came to that, and if you read about that, I mean, they were purged.
Yes.
And they were cleared out, and whose land is supposed to be whose in this area, so it kind of, but yeah, I went directly to that. It started bringing up these places and kicking how they erased the Palestinian villages, and it's like, well, but yeah, they belong to the Canaanites. God said to erase those fucking villages.
Right.
Israelis too. The Israelis too.
Yeah. And
that's the problem with it.
Yeah, they didn't erase some of the other tribes. And what happened with some of those tribes, I would venture to guess they became the Tatarian Khazarian groups that migrated north, and eventually they're like, we want to go back and reclaim it with the other elders that were kicked out around 70 AD.
You're not in the wars of Joshua against the Canaanites and they lose in the battle of Ai. If you're the city of Ai, or however they pronounce it, you're not winning that first battle and then not sending people out for help or people away because a second wave's coming,
right.
And nothing speaks of that. And it's like, come on, man. The Canaanites and the Moloch worshippers and shit like that still left. The Nephilim were still there.
Right.
Sometimes this land didn't belong to them because those people there. And sometimes you can look at people, Netanyahu, and be like, are you a Nephilim descendant? Or what are we bombing innocent people here for?
Right. Or what's his name? Something Mawaski.
Yeah,
Poland, but it's
I'm
just
not
like,
even gonna
guys,
try those.
yeah, it's just like their names give them away half the time. When you look up the real name,
Yep.
again, what did they just say? They're changing the names to sound Aramaic, but they're actually not.
Yeah, sure.
This is another clip because people are going to say, well, what if you're just listening to biased sources? Do you believe an American president? This is Truman giving his 2 cents on what's
What's your
going on.
definition of bias?
Well, that's what I'm
the
saying.
best.
I know
That
there
was
are
the
some
best
people with.
map that
You've
America
been
could
here.
afford.
You've been here, Matt. Is that correct?
Oh hell no! Oh hell no!
Is Iraq really that fucking big?
No.
We're trying to make it, yeah, but it's just, they'll believe us. We'll
It's
believe it.
like if I gave my kid a crayon and told her to like put a bunch of like, hey, put these countries in together, and yeah, that's basically they got the rivers not even right. Not even right.
Right. They're further north,
Still,
if I'm not mistaken, right? And they tilt more
they
this
kind
way.
of go together right in the middle of Iraq
Yeah.
and cross even. Isn't that the Tigris? Yeah, they cross right like in the middle. So
Again, they're pitching the way they want it to look.
Yeah,
But
they've never
anyways,
been there. They've never been there. This was just the
but this is
agenda,
the thing.
you know?
The American population's going to believe whatever the big shot tells me again. But do we remember half this stuff? No. And that's part of the reason why we're doing the show, is to show you this has been historically out there. This is somebody, Matt has been over there. He's seen it. He knows the lie for himself. But the average individual, they don't know what goes on over there. So
The Zionists particularly, who were against anything that was to be done if they couldn't have the whole of Palestine and everything handed to them on a silver plate so they wouldn't have to do anything. It couldn't be done. We had to take it in small doses. You can't move 5 or 6 million people out of a country and fill it up with 5 or 6 million more and expect both sets of them to be pleased. We had all sorts of objections to everything that was done. Something had to be done. We went ahead and done it, and had it done, and now it's working out.
done it? You mean did it? This is
done
the
it
president.
and had it done.
We live in rural Colorado. This sounds like our parents.
Yeah. Definitely our grandparents, dude, for sure.
But maybe this is the 3 ribs that they're talking about, is them making Lebanon, going into Syria, and then once they hit Iraq, that's when Russia goes, we tolerated for a bit. Now they're saying no.
I wondered that because they did say the fighting was, or they were loading their troops up on that Syrian-Lebanon border. And I was like, that's funny. They chose the north side by Syria instead of down in like the stronghold of Lebanon.
Right. So this is another president, former, but President Jimmy Carter gives his 2 cents, and he was a Mason. I did a series of posts of all the presidents that were Masons because everybody's saying every single one of them were. Yes and no. Around the 1800s, it was kind of flip a coin, yes and no, every 4 or 5 years. Lincoln really ticked them off, as I've done in other shows. But this is him giving his 2 cents on Democracy Now! With an interview.
Why don't Americans know what you have seen?
Americans don't want to know. And many Israelis don't want to know what is going on inside Palestine. It's a terrible human rights persecution that far transcends what any outsider would imagine. And there are powerful political forces in America that prevents any objective analysis of the problem in the Holy Land. I think it's accurate to say that not a single member of Congress with whom I'm familiar would possibly speak out and call for Israel to withdraw to their legal boundaries or to publicize the plight of the Palestinians, or even to call publicly and repeatedly for good faith peace talks. There hadn't been a day of peace talks now in more than 7 years. So this is a taboo subject, and I would say that if any member of Congress did speak out, as I've just described, they would probably not be back in the Congress the next term.
Who are these forces that you're talking about?
Well, there's an inherent commitment in America, which I share as a Christian, of a deep commitment to make sure that Israel is safe. And that is added on to by the very effective work of the American-Israeli group called AIPAC, which is performing its completely legitimate task of convincing Americans to support the policies of the Israeli government. And AIPAC is not dedicated to peace. They're dedicated to inducing the maximum support in America, in the White House, in the Congress, and in the public media for whatever policies the Israeli government has at a particular time, and they're extremely effective.
So political prostitutes that have a bias incentive to support another country that's not ours. So which is valid when you're getting these people going up in that Charlie Kirk, I have a clip of this, saying, so how is this America first? Don't peddle anti-Semitic conspiracy theories in my event.
Let's talk about Jimmy Carter looking right into the camera and going, if we're not backing Israeli agenda, you're probably not going to have your job in politics next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then going on to say, like, oh yeah, we're specifically like targeting like the backing of American people. Of Israel.
What?
Like, yeah.
That's good old Jimmy Carter, right? Builds houses for America.
But then he says Christian, but it's like if he says he's a Christian and we know he's a Mason, and he's also supporting AIPAC, which is the thing that Kennedy was going after. That's part of the reason why they had to off him, because he was going after Israel's nuclear program, saying shut it down. And secondly, AIPAC's original former name, he was trying to label them an anti-foreign lobbying group, so that like they had to be basically put on a watch list and canceled that. And that was over here going, oh no, you don't. And it was some guy, I think Letters of Kennedy. He was exposing that there was letters being exchanged between Kennedy and the Prime Minister of Israel at that time, so much so that the guy actually stepped down. He abdicated from being prime minister because of what Kennedy was doing. So it kind of gives you a little bit of a, the plot thickens, Your Honor. And why do we need to pay attention to AIPAC? Because AIPAC is what's influencing how you interpret things in the news. Dispensationalism, or Schofield Bible, is how you're interpreting it with theology. Merge those two together, what are you? You are a modern Templar Crusader. I am? Yes, and you are mentioned in Revelation because you're the dummies that are going to go fight this war for them. Now, when they gave that clip of the prime minister, I think this is the only alleged female prime minister they've had over there, but this is the exact clip in the interview where she's over here going, it never was Israel. This is a prime minister. This is somebody who is in charge of the current country that is today. So when people are saying it's always been their land or it's always been Israel, this is a prime minister literally going, no, that's absolutely bogus. And if you don't believe a prime minister, then you are really cognitive dissonant. I'm sorry.
I mean, when were Palestinians born? What was all this area before the First World War? When Britain got the mandate over Palestine, what was Palestine then? Palestine was then the area between the Mediterranean and the Iraqi border.
You say there's no such thing as
East
Palestine?
and West Bank, no. East and West Bank was Palestine. I'm a Palestinian. From 21 until 48, I carried a Palestinian passport.
Okay.
Why would you do that?
Right? It's like
you're Israeli. That isn't. How would you get back in?
Right. And there's a lady right now in Canada. I saw her play a clip on TikTok, and I saw it on Instagram thing. And she's saying they're trying to say that my grandma's thing is invalid, but she still has, because she was around during this time, she still has credentials saying I'm from Palestine. They're saying you don't exist. She's like, well, what are you talking about? Because they're trying to adapt history and re-envisionist, and it's like, no, because there's documents here. I am an individual that exists to state that what you're telling me is a lie. But we are buying the lie because they want us to buy the lie to go and fight for them.
It's such horseshit to tell us, well, you can't get your news from anywhere.
Too. You're just full out changing history.
Forever.
Oh, yeah. You know,
that's
absolutely.
Like that's a temporary thing. Like, oh, no, it's always been Israel.
Dude, I've heard of people who go to like dig sites and stuff, and it's like, well, that's not where the money's at for today, so throw that side of history away. That's not what we're looking for. It's like, okay.
They literally just bury it all back up. Yeah.
Erase that.
Yep. So this is an Israeli exchange student that is even closer. This is from like a game show or a little interview show. And they're talking with all these students. I think one's from Lebanon, if I'm not mistaken. It's kind of a little blurry. United Emirates, Israel, and Jordan. And this is what she says.
What would you say, each of you, is the most important political event that's taken place in your countries in your lifetime?
Well, I may say that my country was established, and I think it's no doubt the greatest event that may happen, because before 1947, it was called Palestine then. It was under the British mandate.
That checks out with what we've watched, and this is something that's closer to that time frame. It's not me going, oh, you're just anti. No, I'm literally just stating history is going against what you're implying. And again, I'm laying this out before we show the plights of the other side. I'm laying out the historical grounds, or are they pulling at bogus strings and PragerU is telling me what's right with their documentary or Daily Wire? Fill in the blank of whoever you want. Now, this is the second longest one, but I'm putting it in here because this is very important and relevant for most evangelicals to understand. This is the ideology of the Pharisees is the same thing that the Z's are taught in their schools. I could have brought another clip, but I want to condense some time. Where the guy is explaining that this is right from their script. This is in their schools before they're deployed on the field. They are still being taught from this book to this day. So when I say I'm anti-Zionist, I am saying I'm anti-Pharisee. And what did Christ do? He condemned the Pharisees. So as a Christian, would it not behoove me to still stand in alignment of what Christ stood against? And not an ethnicity, but an ideology that is pulling people away from the hearts and minds of God. And this is a group that hates Christ. So I think that's relevant. So
in Treatise Sanhedrin, an extensive passage describes the right of the Pharisee to kill anyone.
Can you hear it?
Yeah.
I'm trying to go as high as I can. Okay. By the way, this is from Ted Pike's The Other Israel. You can find it on YouTube if this was too quiet for you or whoever's watching.
As long as he did so indirectly. As one of dozens of examples, the Talmud tells us that if one bound his neighbor and he died of starvation, he is not liable to execution. In such an indirect manner, the Pharisees also killed Christ. Manipulating the Romans to actually wield the spear and sword, the Pharisees claimed, as their descendants do today, that since the Romans were the direct cause of the death of Christ, it is the Romans, not the Jews, who are guilty. Christ also called the Pharisees adulterers, an adulterous generation. The Talmud provides generous loopholes for adultery. It says the penalty for adultery does not include sex with a minor, the wife of a minor, or the wife of a heathen. The Talmud also encourages seduction of unwed adolescent girls called designated bondmaids. But it's important how such rapes are performed. With the designated bondmaid, one is guilty only in the case of natural connection, but not in the case of perverse connection. The Pharisees reasoned that rape in a perverted manner is outside the jurisdiction of the law. Normal rape, however, was punishable.
What is the difference in that?
Benevolent sexual perversion of every kind had been a way of life for millenniums. The Pharisees were deeply influenced by such practices.
In 3 of the major treatises of the Talmud are found extensive passages which give legal endorsement to seduce and marry 3-year-old baby girls. In fact, many of the greatest rabbis of the Talmud, including Simeon ben Yochai, upheld this privilege. Today in Israel, thousands of Jews go to Meron every year to venerate the memory of Simeon ben Yochai, one of the most respected rabbis in the history of Judaism.
In one of dozens of endorsements of child sex, Simeon ben Yochai said, "A proselyte under the age of 3 years and a day is permitted to marry a priest." Agreeing with ben Yochai, the great Rabbah said, "When a grown-up man has intercourse with a little girl, it is nothing, for when the girl is less than this 3 years and a day, it is as if one put the finger into the eye." The footnote to this passage says, As tears come to the eye again and again, so does virginity come back to the little girl under 3 years. The same section confirms that sexual activity with small boys is in the same category. The intercourse of a small boy is not regarded as a sexual act. In addition to adulterers, Christ
That's some Roman shit.
portrayed the Pharisees as racial bigots, too self-righteous to respond to the suffering of one who was not a Jew. It is true, because of the wickedness of the Canaanites, which included sodomy and infant sacrifice, Israel had been commanded by God to be harsh in her treatment of the inhabitants of the land. God made it clear that the Canaanites were not simply to be avoided, but destroyed. By the time of the New Testament, this method of preserving God's kingdom by separation and the sword had become obsolete. God no longer made a racial difference between men.
But the Pharisees were unfazed by God's new agenda. The Talmud was finally written down nearly 5 centuries after Christ. Yet its critical, even homicidal attitudes toward Gentiles might have been lifted out of the book of Joshua. However, the quickest way to grasp the Talmudic view of Gentiles is not directly from the Talmud, but from the Jewish encyclopedias. If we quote an isolated opinion from the Talmud, a rabbi may quickly object, saying, "But that is not the overall opinion of the Talmud. That is not the definitive view." What the Jewish encyclopedia provides us is a definitive overview of perhaps hundreds of rabbinic statements on any subject, giving us accurate summaries of what the Talmud generally teaches.
In its article on Gentiles, the Jewish Encyclopedia begins to define what makes a Jew so different from a Gentile. According to the rabbis, only Israelites are men. Gentiles they class not as men, but as barbarians. Since Gentiles are not men in the fullest sense, so the Gentile is not a neighbor of a Jew. Further, since Gentile laws were too crude to admit of reciprocity, meaning too crude to be taken seriously, the Gentile was forever beneath the Jew. Gentiles were outlawed by God from the beginning, and thus had no property rights. The Almighty offered the Torah to the Gentile nations also, but since they refused to accept it, he withdrew his shining legal protection from them and transferred their property rights to Israel, who observed his law. Since the Talmud outlawed the child, or issue of a Gentile, as that of a beast, a Gentile had as little legal rights in a Jewish court as did an animal. The Talmud states that if a Gentile sue an Israelite, the verdict is for the defendant, the Israelite. Conversely, if the Israelite is the plaintiff, he obtains full damages. Because the Talmud conspires against Gentiles, if a Jew was ever caught telling a Gentile what the Talmud really says, such a person deserves death. So vile was the nature of a Gentile that the great Simeon ben Yochai said, "The best among the Gentiles deserves to be killed. The best of snakes ought to have its head crushed." Jews, however, are exalted beings in the Talmud, worthy of praise. Christ described the Pharisee who blessed himself, saying, "I thank thee, Lord, that I am not as other men." An eminent Talmudic rabbi says the same. "Blessed be thou, who hast not made me a Goy, or Gentile." There is a special antagonism between the Talmud and Jesus. The Talmud attacks him everywhere it can, even his mother. Mary, the Talmud says, was a whore who mated with carpenters. She who was the descendant of princes and governors played the harlot with carpenters. It naturally followed that the scribes declared Christ to be a bastard. In its article on Jesus, the Jewish Encyclopedia says that Jewish writings defame Christ. It is the tendency of all these sources to belittle the person of Jesus by ascribing to him illegitimate birth, magic, and a shameful death. Jesus, according to this article, was considered one of the 3 worst enemies of Judaism who came to an ignoble end. The Talmud says they subjected him to 4 deaths: stoning, burning, decapitation, and strangling. The Talmud also says he is now in hell, punished with boiling hot excrement. What is Christ's advice as he speaks to us out of hell? The Jewish Encyclopedia quotes Jesus as telling us above all to bless the Jews. He says, "Further their well-being, do nothing to their detriment. Whoever touches them touches even the apple of his eye." Christians, as followers of the false prophet Jesus, also deserve death. The Jewish Encyclopedia again recaps the Talmud's position. A Gentile observing the Sabbath deserves death. It says the Talmud's hatred was probably directed against the Christian Jews. These Judeo-Christians, evasively called min, minute, or minim, were considered by the rabbis to be the most dangerous form of heretics of ancient times. The New Testament Gospels were writings which the rabbis considered more dangerous to the unity of Judaism than those of the pagans. A Talmudic rabbi said, "The writings of Christians deserve to be burned, for paganism is less dangerous than minute or Christianity."
So, I think that's more than enough and sufficient to kind of give a little bit of a ground basis of where I'm coming from.
Felt dirty.
Huh?
It felt dirty.
Do you not feel horrible after that?
Yeah.
Like, what did I do? I was born. That's a problem.
Yep. That's what happened there.
It's like Ben Shapiro, Dennis Prager. Why do you guys never mention this? How come we never talk about what these writings are saying about a guy that's the prominent figure of Christianity? Most of your followers, conservative, Republicans.
Yeah, they kind of split some hairs on rape, huh?
Yeah, so secondly, again, I try to have a little bit of a thing where if you're actually repentive and you weren't really a Christian and you actually, again, that yes, you can be forgiven. But does that sound like a repentive doctrine?
Well, it sounds like you're trying to get away with it. Basically,
forcing it. And in another book by Edward Hendry, he explains the similarities between Judaism and Catholicism. Because you notice anything similar about priests and Sanhedrin? It's very similarly designed. And this book connects these dots of how they actually are like, yeah, they get away with it. Because Mayor Bloomberg, you might remember him after 9/11. He became the mayor of New York. Remember when you were hearing about that little thing where they were sucking on a kid's yeah, he was the guy that basically said, all right, we'll sweep it under the rug. And they basically gave him more votes from the Jewish community so he could continue a second term as mayor of New York by sweeping practices like this under the rug that we didn't see it. Or the tunnels that we found in was it January, February of this year?
It's
under the synagogues?
I mean, you got to win over where your demograph's at, right? I guess. What the fuck, though?
Who's puppeting you?
And then they so quickly buried like the bloody mattresses and the syringes and stuff like that along with it. They were like, no, that wasn't from here.
Right.
Okay, well, where was it from then?
And again, no answer. Just we're not going to talk about it. And again, if I was in Hollywood, I'd be doing a whole thing where there's this one cop that actually is like, I'm going to get to the end of this. And then, we have a classic little thing where he gets offed because if this story gets out, everybody's going to be, again, maybe there is somebody out there. I don't know. But it's that classic scenario is like, guys, I was doing some digging and I'm over here like, how come we're not pressing charges? Am I not supposed to be representing the law? You notice the badge you wear? 6 points on that star. Who do you really serve? And you'll also find that a lot of New York police officers train with the IDF. That's not a joke.
They say that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, you train with the IDF?
No, but we use their bandages, dude. They got some awesome bandages.
Yeah, we'll take what we can get, right?
We don't want our goy bleeding out on the battlefield. Easy there, my little cow. Again, Talmud is relating to the doctrines of men, the thing that Christ was condemning. Traditionalism, also in the book by Edward Hendry, Solving the Mystery of Babylon the Great, highly recommend the purchase. He was stating that, and he brings citations, that rabbis are actually tutoring God for 1 hour per day about their wisdom that they have acquired. You're tutoring who? Your creator? Are you crazy? You blasphemous little... Again, What is truth? Your Torah is truth. But they're over here saying, no, we can mix some of the man-made teachings into all this. This is the significance of why Christ intervened. And when I do that other episode, God's been divorced, it will clarify once and for all who was Christ. What is the significance of why he did what he did? And what is the significance of a third spiritual temple, not physical, which these guys are basing all of their things off of? Because when you read Ezekiel chapter 8, they're doing a sun god worship ceremony to Tammuz, Nimrod's son. And he's over here saying to Ezekiel, they think I don't see the abomination they're doing in my own temple. Brings a little bit of a So, for those people who dabble in chakras, Kabbalah, Kundalini, they all interconnect. But this guy, when we were talking about Kabbalah, which is part of the Talmud doctrines, he states that Freemasonry serves as a rudimentary screening process for organized Satanism. For those that naively think that politics and ritual magic do not mix. Founder of the Church of Satan, and he incorporated elements of the Kabbalah into his philosophy of Levian Satanism. What is the essence of this? Well, it's the study of the Kabbalah and its connections to cosmology. By the way, that's something interesting if you didn't know. It was the fallen angels that gave us cosmetics, that allegedly taught us how to use roots for abortions and whatnot, to have like a potion or whatnot for that. So cosmology, cosmos, kind of have to wonder if there's a little bit of a connection here because stars and all that again. But cosmology, star worship, theism, it's all about do as thou wilt. It's okay. Find the inner God in yourself. Just don't consult the God. That's the problem, my dear little friend. In their teachings, I'm just giving it what they're stating. The seven towers of Satan, or the Ziaras, 6 of the Trapsoidal in form and 1 in the center. Mount Lalesh, shaped like a shaped fluted point. You'll notice it kind of looks similar to the pyramid and or somebody doing the yoga pose here in between the 2 pillars, which, by the way, this is the Twin Towers. The 3rd building is you. It is humanity. It is finding enlightenment. When you go into a Masonic lodge and you see the 2 candles and the one in front of you, that is you looking to the light of finding that eventually within yourself. And sometimes you need to tear down your own ego in order to ascend to become your own God. This is Freemasonry. This is what Tammuz and Nimrodism, regeneration, reincarnation, to find that inner God yourself. Pyramid, pi for fire, Ra, Re, sun god, mid, in your midst, fire of the sun god in your midst, and the all-seeing eye. What is that? Fire of the sun god in your midst. You want a little bit of that fire from heaven and that doctrine of how to do this on your own to ascend to become your own God, like Lucifer promised? You need to follow what Tammuz was teaching in Nimrod, and then you will achieve the top, your 33, atop in this order. This is who you're supporting with your Star of Remphan saying, pray for. You're supporting Nimrod's religion, Christ pagan doppelganger. And for folks who didn't believe me with the Kundalini Kabbalah, the above excerpt is also in the center of odd one out, the heart chakra. The heart chakra does have power, but not the kind of power the strongest chakra of the soul, the 666 chakra of the sun, has. 6 neutrons, 6 electrons, 6 protons. It's a tearing down of the atom and building up your own man. And chakra, where your heart and mind is, there where your treasure be also. I study the hearts and minds of men, as it says in Jeremiah. What are they doing? I'll find that inner sun god with myself. Don't believe me? What am I citing? Copyright 2013, Joy of Satan Ministries. It's not me just going, you're pulling some from a source. Joy of Satan Ministries. I think they would know, right? I think they would know. So,
they're paying attention to what they do.
Oh, yeah. And again, it's subtle. It's like even Scientology, finding the inner Satan within yourself. And I didn't say Satan, Thetan, T-H-A-T. I'm probably butchering it, but finding the inner little God within yourself. Like I said, the symbiotic relationship with stars of Hollywood. A lot of New Agers are already buying into this, saying, "Oh, we're misunderstanding you. We just need to have God in it." No, no, no. In order to accept the gift of the Holy Spirit, you submit to the Word and the authority of God the Father, which was emulated through His Son, which was the Word made flesh. That is how you get the gift of the Holy Spirit, not finding your inner God in yourself. Are you crazy?
Too
Well,
many people right off the bat go, I'm giving myself, I'm good now. And it's like, no. You're a sinner right off the bat.
yes.
That's that's what it is, and you'll forever be that. Let's
Yes.
go.
Communism is Judaism. A lot of folks did not know this, so I'm laughing at a lot of these people that are watching what's going on saying, "If we just had communism as a solution, we would have better." No. Do you know where it came from? Because as Dennis Prager said, every ism you can think of in history, aside from Nazism, came from, and I'm like, even that's a lie, because how would the protocols have harmed the communist revolution in Russia, as stated by the president of the communist Russian court that brutalized Nilis? Because the communist revolution was essentially Talmudic Judaism put into practice to take over Russia according to the strategy set forth in the protocols of Zion, by the way. Many think that Zionism is the struggle of the Jews for a homeland. Zionism is much more than the Jews establishing a Palestinian homeland. That is merely a cover for a much greater plan to rule the world. Zionism is the child of the Talmud. The Talmudianism is communism. Communist revolution in Russia was planned and executed by Jews according to the outline in the protocols. Lenin, supreme dictator, and Leon Bronstein, aka Trotsky, supreme commander of the Soviet Red Army, were both Jews. The Bolshevik Revolution was Jewish from top to bottom. Of 556 leading conspirators of the Bolshevik state in 1918 to 19, there were 17 Russians, 2 Ukrainians, 11 Armenians, 35 Latvians, 15 Germans, 1 Hungarian, 10 Georgians, 3 Poles, 3 Finns, 1 Czech, 1 Karium, and 457 Jews. There's a leading influence here. As pointed out by Robert Wilton in his book, The Last Days of the Romanovs, the Communist Revolution was not an insurrection by Russians, but rather a secret invasion of Jews. As of 1983, the premier of the Soviet Union was a Jew, and 23 of the 25 members of the Politburo, the Soviet ruling clique, were Jews. In addition, every top member of the military and Soviet police were Jews. Bourgeoisie was a Bolshevik code word for Gentile. Huh? The first law passed after the communists seized power in Russia made anti-Semitism a crime punishable by death. That is July 27th of 1918 in the Izvestia. The Jewish Bolsheviks regarded politics as a branch of Gentile pest control. Hatred of Christians, especially the peasant bourgeoisie, was their prime motivation. The systematic destruction of Christian peasantry of Russia, as so many vermin, begin with Lenin's attack on them in the summer of 1918 and his forced starvation in 1921, has been almost completely ignored in Western history. Moses Mordecai Marx Levi, alias Karl Marx, was a Jew, a Satanist, and a member of the League of the Just, which was a branch of the Illuminati. And in 1847, Marx was commissioned by the Illuminati to write the Communist Manifesto, which is an outline of their plans for world domination. How did the Illuminati Talmudists know the blueprint of subjugation of a country and set forth the Communist Manifesto would work? They knew it would work because the Jesuits, again, these are crypto Jews on the Catholic order, had 150 years to refine the methods. Between 1600 and 1750, the Jesuits controlled over 250,000 ignorant natives of Paraguay and over 30 communes, which they called reductions. The Jesuits were the masters of these poor slaves, whose labors made the Jesuits immensely wealthy. The lessons learned in the reductions were memorialized in the Communist Manifesto. The Talmudic Jews have been successful in preventing any revelations about their involvement in establishing a new communist world order by labeling anyone who exposes their efforts as anti-Semite. What many do not understand is that many who claim to be the objects of anti-Semitism are not Semites at all. Semites are those who are descended from Shem, the oldest son of Noah. Most Jews living in Israel and throughout the world today are Eastern European converts to a religion they call Judaism, from, in fact, the Babylonian Talmudism. The Europeans who later converted to Babylonian form of Judaism are known as Ashkenazi or Khazar Jews. Dr. Benjamin H. Freeman, a former Jew, states that Khazars were a pagan nation whose religious worship was a mixture of phallic worship and other forms of idolatry. In the 7th century, by King Bulan or Bulkin, chose Talmudism, which most call Judaism as the state religion. Today, Khazar Jews are called Yiddish. In Revelation, God refers to the Talmudic Ashkenazi Jews as the synagogue of Satan.
Phallic worship.
Which we see with the Washington Monument, which we see at the Vatican in the very center, which we see in London with the bankers. And there was a book, I think it's Trotsky in New York, talking about how he was coordinating getting the funding for the revolution that was going to take place in Russia. If you're going by Albert Pike's letter to Mazzini, written on August 15th, 1871, Mazzini was in charge of the European Masonry lodges. He stated that there will be 3 world wars. The first was to eliminate the Tsarist regime in Russia, aka Tsar Nicholas and his family. And then the second was to be with Germany and all that stuff. And the third was supposed to be between the political Z's and the Islamic states. The chief target was to eliminate atheism and the nihilists, and the chief target to be Christianity. Now, how do you eliminate Christianity? Because most Christians don't even understand what it is to be a Christian. Let's be absolutely honest here. But if you understand what our weapon is, what is it? The sword of the Spirit? I think I'm getting that right. Whatever it's listed, I think Ephesians 5 or 6, when you're talking about the full body armor of God.
Yes.
We have the word. We are keeping the word alive. We're giving clarity and context. I would state Old Testament is laying out what it's supposed to be. The New Testament is giving clarity and context. That is exactly what Christ was doing. That's exactly all what Paul was writing out. I know what this law means. There's a reason why God chose me, because I was starting to persecute you with misinterpreting what it means. Now I'm giving context and clarity of what it actually means. And this is why today a lot of Christians are still citing from New Testament. We are supposed to be keeping the word alive. What is an obstacle to this? Christians, because they're keeping the guy they hate the most alive. And you're actually giving context and clarity and holding the word of truth forth when they want everybody to buy the deception of lies. What does it say? We're supposed to be the bridesmaids that keep the light lit. Don't hide it under a bushel. Don't hide what you know under a bushel. Start being controversial, because the bridegroom's coming. And in Revelation 18:23, it says, the voice of the groom and the bridesmaid was heard no longer in thee.
Well, Brandon, that doesn't sound like love.
Get out. No. What about peace and love, man?
That's
Okay,
all that's all that
get out of here, John
modern
Lennon.
that's all that modern Christian is, man. It's all
Yes.
about love, man. It's just about love. That's it.
It's about
Just
love. No standards, no like calling out evil, or again, a lot of people are getting upset when I'm calling out Marmari or I'm calling out Russell Brand. He's just a baby Christian. Look at the symbolism and then ask yourself some question. Is this what a real Christian does? Do they still dabble in tarot, which has direct connections to Kabbalah? Because I did that compare and contrast right there. And they're over here going, well, he's just a baby Christian. Do you know what the Kabbalah is? No. This is, again, do you know what is paganism? Well, it's worshiping Satan. Okay, how do you go about that? Well, pentagrams and stuff.
Yeah, right.
Do you know what I'm
Rituals.
saying? This is how stupid we are, because we don't know what we're condemning. We're just saying that's just bad, but it becomes narcissistic as, well, I'm just self-righteous, right? Colonialism, we're just doing it because they need to be converted in Jesus' name. Amen. You're going to slay a whole bunch of people while doing it? No. You are calling out evil, but you're not doing it by the point of the sword. You're doing it by the conversion of the spirit. Do most people get this? No. And this is why we're justifying over there. Because why? Because you have the whore of the spirit of Babylon in you. What is a whore? It's a fake love. It's a false faith. A whore is temporary lust. It is not the real thing, and it's called a marriage with the Heavenly Father for a reason.
That's
So
an
I'm not
answer.
going to.
That's an answer
Go
for all
ahead.
those people who go, well, it's just fear trying to get me in. If they just listened to the last 5 minutes of what you said, they would say that differently.
If they actually dug into it, or I don't like religion. The whole reason for sending Christ was to condemn this kind of stuff of religion contracting of men. If you read Christ, every time he makes a cameo in a physical building, causes a problem. Every time he confronts religious leaders, causes a problem. There's got to be something here that you guys aren't digging. So I don't have to read all of these, as a lot of this was already cited in the little clip, but it says never discuss the Talmud with Gentiles. If they knew what it says, they'd kill us openly. We use are the destroyers and will remain the destroyers. Nothing you can do will meet our demands and needs. We will forever destroy because we want a world of our own. Maurice Samuel, taken from his book, You Gentiles, page 155. You Gentiles, like, again, if you did not know, Gentile means cow. Fun fact, when you're doing a little bit of a dig as to what a vaccine originally was, it means of or from a cow. It was invented by a Freemason. And they call us Goyim. And we're all getting this injection in our during 2020. And okay. And you
And
look up
beyond 58
right.
boosters later.
And you look up everybody that's in charge of the distribution and production of it, they all had dual citizenship with this country. Not even joking. So it kind of makes you go, oh shoot. Oh shoot.
That's why they use those terms.
Mm-hmm. And again, you guys want to screenshot the screen, go for it. I don't want to put these gentlemen through like 5 hours. I'm just trying to condense, but some highlights here. If you get Brave browser, because Google's not going to show you this stuff, just get Brave browser, type in Talmud, Jesus's punishment, or whatever, and they will give you an AI synopsis and such things as cited. Gittin 56b, 57a, Christ is boiling in excrement, for necromancy, alleged necromancy. In conclusion, that he contains several accounts where Jesus' punishment in hell, including an infamous boiling in excrement passage. So it's confirmed it's not just somebody that was biasly trying to bring something up in a documentary to make everybody hate you. No, this is stuff you can still look up on your computer if you know how to use your browser and get the right things. And again, his crime, it states in Gittin 57a, was because Christ was allegedly dabbling in sorcery. Similar today, every accusation is a self-admission. Deflect and point on them. It was the Romans who did it. Yes, but as I said before in another show, who ultimately pulls the trigger in a time of battle? Was it an ideology? Was it a government? Or was it the soldier? Chicken or the egg? You know what I'm saying? You have to understand what was the thing that got you to the point of what you're doing. And when you understand how ideologies are dictating how you do things in life, as I've done in other shows, the lesser two evils, you start going, oh, so that's how they're controlling me, because casting my vote of consent, you can't condemn them then when they're putting you on an altar of sacrifice. So if you have a false flag event and you break a couple of eggs for an omelet, like 9/11 or Trump's assassination, and somebody gets murked, it's completely justified. You're just a little garnish for the event. Does that sound nice to you? No, but this is how they think. You are nothing to them because you are expendable to them.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the virgin in the village, or it could be some guy that's been a veteran for 40 years of the fire department. They don't give a crap.
That
They
doesn't
don't
sound
give a
like
crap.
love either.
Right. By the way, did you know where we get our genders from? Multiple genders, that is to say.
No.
Same book. Same book. And when I cited, I literally shared it from a guy who is identifying as one of the things. I shared it and Meta took it down, and the guy even liked it in my story. I was like, this is him sharing it, and you say it's totally fine. When I'm sharing it, you're over here going, no, 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 no. When I was seeing when originally all this was going down, whether it was bot accounts or it was real things, I was looking at all the profiles that were supporting what was going on after October 7th, and a lot of them all had this dual gender thing going on, and I'm going, guys, it's right in our faces. It's right in our faces. All these things that are supporting it. You look at the profile. And again, male, female. The Zakhar is male. Nekiva is female. Androgynous, being both male and female, aka Baphomet or Hermaphrodite, Hermes, which is again another equivalent of Tammuz. And I can't even pronounce all the other ones, but yeah, it's there, folks. And a you may violate but not marry a non-you girl. Gentile goys are not humans; they are beasts. Gentile goy girls are in a state of nada, aka filth from birth. And we see them doing a little bit of the bepe, met zitva bepe. Anyways, basically
Sodomy.
once they do the little circumcision thing, they're like, oh, we gotta get rid of the blood. Get the suction cup. No, I'll take it from here.
What?
Yes, that's what they're doing.
They don't care about like cleanliness even.
This is the reason why, and Bloomberg was like, no, it's okay. Because they had a newsreel that went out about this saying these two kids, one of the infants died because they got some sort of STD, I think it was, if I remember correctly. And Bloomberg basically swept this under the rug saying, well, it's part of their religious practices, so we can't really say anything about it. But it's like, he puts an infant that literally just been out like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and he's anybody else in America, that's jail time, buddy.
Yeah, show me where Jesus said that's okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Where are we going to set that bar then? Like, we can do what under the veil of religion?
Right. Right. And again, it's like, well, that's just what they do. It's we don't have to condemn. Let's just kumbaya. Let's kumbaya. No. As a saint, Christian, ones who follows the anointed one, supposed to be set apart from the things of the world. Does that sound like something I want to be a part of, or just say it's okay? No. No. Trump, don't take my word for it. He's got this little Kabbalah Cham, the literary works of what this is inscribed on his wall in his business office in New York. The Chabad mysticism. It's connecting with the Kabbalah tree. And you notice what gesture he's doing towards it? It's okay. No, let me give you a little something here, folks. This is 1, 6, 2, 6, 6. Divine man, when you see the occult do this, because I know a lot of people, I'm seeing so many people on Facebook, they're sharing this stuff and they have no idea what it means. They're just like, oh, look, they're doing a creepy gesture. Oh, look, they're doing a creepy gesture. I'm like, what does it mean? Well, it's Satanism. Breaks my heart, dude. Because when they understand what it is, they're not going to be just going, well, oh no, you're just being biased. He's actually against them. Because when you look at his own book, page 188, one day when my Kabbalah teacher, Eaton Yardini, did you know that he is Madonna's mentor?
You showed that the last time you were on
Yes.
this. I remember that.
He dabbles into the Zohar, the prophecy of the stars. So you're just going,
yeah.
Well, how again? Well, it's cited from somebody else that's just a lot of business people, and he puts but he let it be okay in his book. He went to a Jesuit school. He went to a Jesuit college. Like I said, that's crypto-Uism. His pastor was Norman Vincent Peale, a 33-degree Shriner Master Mason. There's like at a certain point, folks, you have to kind of open your eyes and go, he's one of the baddies? Yeah. And he might be one of the chief baddies because he's on top of they have a song over there where they're saying Super Trump, he is Jerusalem's prince, to the sky he will reach. When you're listening to the lyrics, you're just going, what?
If people are just now questioning if he's a baddie, it's too late.
Oh yeah.
They're all a baddie.
We are 1 month away from you doing your third greatest mistake in your life. First time, shame on you, or shame on them. Second time, shame on me. And again, I voted for him twice. First time ever voting. I have the right to say that because it's over here like Clinton or this random business guy I didn't want in the first place, but he's the only option left. And the second time I went and I was literally spiritually the whole time walking through the crowd going, this feels so off. I feel dirty being here. That is literally how I felt. And ever since then, I don't vote. So don't think of me as somebody like, you're just a Cassatang, you're just a liberal. No. I went through the process, walked away from the process. Just throwing that out there for folks. Again, the red string, little Kabbalah thing that his daughter what's her name? Ivanka. Trump. She wears it. Kabbalah. What's his name? Tucker Carlson, the sniper at Trump's attempted assassination attempt. He was wearing a red Kabbalah string, and it says the power of protection, and it has connections right to the Kabbalah right here on the side of the vinyl of the book by Yehuda Berg, The Holy Kabbalah. What's right here on that book cover by A.E. White? All-Seeing Eye. All-Seeing Eye. And it connects with, at the top of the Kabbalah tree of life, as I've kept on referring to several times now, and I'm saying yew, a coniferous yew tree, for those who are not following what I was referring to. It's a yew worship. This is the tree thing you bring into your house every Christmas. This is something that I absolutely loved his humor until he said one time at a Jerry Lewis, I believe, was it Jerry Lewis or somebody else? What's his name? Don Rickles. And he was referring to the Talmud in a joke way, and I was over here going, Oh, I think it was on, what was it? It was the guy's name that began with a C that was a late talk night show. Carson? I think it was Johnny Carson. He gave a comment like that, and I was like, and then another one was at a banquet when he mentions the Talmud. He was saying, where do you think the Gentiles get their Christmas trees from? Well, you kind of just gave me a huge hint here, buddy, because Hermetic Kabbalah Hermes, Nimrod's son Tammuz, who you guys worship, very top is known as Kether. In Masonic Latin, it's known as corona, a spiked crown. As opposed to being inverted like they did with Christ, it goes outward like their savior figure, a.k.a. Statue of Liberty, Addis, Helios, fill in blank. Wait. So, Brandon, how do you know that these texts are not some kind of biased thing? Well, did you know that every year they have a little skit and they sing this song, Jesus is a Bastard? Don't take my word for it. Let's see.
Waiting every day since we signed the wedding vows, but still Mary won't let me get under her blouse. I pray to my God, I walk a righteous road, but each and every day the need inside me grows. I got a swelling in my soul, so hard to bear. I need that sweet loving, but she just don't care. I resist temptation, though it brings me strife. I lead a virgin life beside my virgin wife.
Sorry, Joseph, she's had a baby, so she's not for a virgin.
Jesus is a bastard, but I will have the last word. Yeah. Jesus is a bastard. That child is not my son, but I will search from dawn to dusk, high and low, near and far, to find the man who did this. Who is the guilty one?
So Jesus never existed? That's the argument you're telling me? You New Agers, you Adam Greens, you Billy Carsons? You're telling me Jesus never existed, but they found time to write down about him in a book? They have time to state in Islam that he was at least a good prophet? They have time to write lyrics to state that he was a bastard? Which is literally, what is it? Denying the chief cornerstone? The word was made flesh? You're literally denying the word by stating that Christ was a bastard. That is what you are singing. Does it sound like somebody you would want to go over there and say, they're our greatest ally, we should support them? I'm sorry, I have a little bit of a beef with that. So, if you didn't know, this is what they think about us. Us Goy, this is what Rabbi Yaron Reuven, non-Jews, should be kissing our feet.
Instead of hating the Jewish people, you should love us. You should kiss our feet, you fool. We're the chosen people, not you. You should actually look at the truth and understand that the Jewish people are the greatest gift to mankind. We're the ones that brought the good to the world, not you. What was an invention of the Palestinians other than throwing rocks or all types of fire in bottles? What did you invent? Nothing. What did we do? We brought you peace. We brought civilization. We brought the Supreme Court, a court system. We brought intellectuals. We brought medicine. The technology that you're using to talk to me was developed by Jews. The computer that you're using was developed by Jews. The microprocessor that you have in your system, regardless whether it's a computer or it's a phone, was developed by Jews. What killing did we do? We only brought good to the world. Remember, there is no peace without you or the Jewish people listening to what the Word of God is. And the Word of God is only in the Torah.
Okay, so you're literally telling me AI, which again, you look up the root server for all AI computers, is run by demons, demon waves, and you're telling me you're the guys who created it. CERN, which brought us the Internet, Inter, place for two more corpse, net, to hold or restrain something, and these guys are telling us blatantly, we're the ones that created it, you should be subjugated to us, you are ungrateful to us for what we've done for you. You brought us peace? If anything, you've brought a lot of controversy. Just in general, whether it's your identity politics, whether it's you dabbling into our money system, whether it's again, it's not an ethnicity. Couldn't give a crap about it. But your ideologies have infiltrated a lot of our culture. And as Dennis Prager, has stated, we are the ones that created all isms. So now let's go over. We're gonna be branching into the Palestinian aspects of things. This is a guy who is from there, and I like to call it basically the best way to define what's going on. If you watch English Telesur on YouTube, and that's spelled Telesur. Some things by journalist Abby Martin. She did a series where she was touring around asking both sides what's going on over here. She was asking Palestinians, and what is essentially going down is that if we don't get the harvest done within a certain amount of time, they have the right to basically come in, filibuster our land, move into our property, kick us out. It's like a hermit crab. I want your shell. I'm just going to evict you, and that's it, because you didn't abide by the laws that I created. And then they induct. They say, hey, everybody, we got free land. You want the land? This is what they're doing, and this is what this guy is venting about.
You want me to support Israel? My Israel? Fuck no, never. Absolutely not. Ew, disgusting. Israel. We talking about the same Israel? My Israel? It's my Israel, by the way. It's mine. I own it. You see, it's my birthright. For those of you who don't know, because I was born a Jewish man, I own the land of Palestine and Israel. It is my fucking blood right. That's not me saying that. That's the state of Israel, by the way. They told me, hey man, because you're technically a Jew, Israel's yours. It's always been yours. Come on down. Come see the homeland. This is me being a dick. This is the state of Israel literally saying this to me. If you are a Jewish person, they offer you what's called birthright. Birthright. The opportunity to come to Israel for free on the Israeli dime and see Israel. It's a timeshare pitch. It's a fucking timeshare pitch. They want you to come see the city, dance in Tel Aviv, eat some kebabs, kick some Palestinians out of their homes, and then they'll try and get you to move there. And they'll do it like this pitch, like it's family, it's unity, it's an Israeli homeland. Nah, guys, it's an apartheid state. It's the greatest shame of the Jewish people. It's disgusting. You want me to condemn terrorists? Easy. I condemn the state of Israel, and I condemn Hamas, the terrorist organization supported by the state of Israel. That was fucking easy. Hamas is a puppet of Israel, guys. It was founded by Israel. It was funded by Israel with the sole intention of destabilizing Palestine, because it's really fucking hard for your country to get its shit together when the one political party being funded by your fucking enemy is Islamic terrorists. All right? And that's literally the explicit strategy of the Israeli government. All right, so yeah, I denounce terrorism in all forms. I denounce the baby killers, the Israeli state who is bombing a city full of children right now. Gaza's mostly kids, guys. 65% of the population is under 24. Half of them are under 18. It is a fucking city of kids. Every time on CNN or MSNBC for a fucking shit show you're watching in order to see all these kids get killed, every time they list the dead Gazans, half of it's just kids. That's the fucking math. Half of it's just kids. You want me to condemn savagery and barbarism? Fucking easily. Who's the savages? Who's the savages? The people living in the open-air prison who are revolting? Or the people running the open-air prison and carpet-bombing children? We are not judged by how well we take care of ourselves. We are judged by how we take care of our brothers. And the Israelis have taken their brother and treated him like a dog. and beaten him and caged him and denied him food and water and shelter and love. And now when the dog lashes out in violence and anger because the dog knows it's about to fucking die, they then use it as justification to kill their fucking brother. And when the Lord returns, it will look to the children of Israel and he will ask them, where is your brother? Do I support Israel? Fuck no, never. Fuck no, never.
Man, enough to make a grown man cry. I've watched this at least 4 or 5 times now, and I'm still about tears. Do you get it, folks? 65% under the age of 24. Half of that 2 million, like 2.3 million, 2.5 million, are kids under the age of 15. And you're over here saying, even the kids. You're now going into Lebanon and saying they have weapons in their kitchen and in their garage. Lebanon too? Is that going to be the same thing in Iraq and Syria? And how long are you going to recycle the same lie? And we're going to keep buying it because every single towel head over there does the same idea. I'm sorry. The lie doesn't fit the narrative. So, as I said, something that they consistently do. This is somebody, again, on Democracy Now!, says it openly. She brags about it, that when people are saying, you're anti-Semitic, this is her response, folks. They do this frequently. Harold Wallace Rosenthal, back in the 1970s, gave a whole interview, and he was talking about how we practically own the UN. You're wondering why they're not doing anything? Ben Gurion said it's Jewish from A to Z. It is simply there to establish their new world order capital. That's all it's there for. But this is what she says when people start going after the bully on the playground.
Often when there is dissent expressed in the United States against policies of the Israeli government, people here are called anti-Semitic. What is your response to that as an Israeli Jew?
Well, it's a trick. We always use it. When from Europe somebody is criticizing Israel, then we bring up the Holocaust. When in this country people are criticizing Israel, then they are anti-Semitic. And the organization is strong and has a lot of money, and the ties between Israel and the American Jewish establishment are very strong, and they are strong in this country. As you know, they have power, which it's okay. They are talented people and they have power, money, and media and other things. And their attitude is Israel, my country, right or wrong, the identification. And they are not ready to hear criticism. And it's very easy to blame people who criticize certain acts of the Israeli government as anti-Semitics, and to bring up the Holocaust and the suffering of the Jewish people, and that justify everything we do to the Palestinians.
Justifies everything you do to the Palestinians. Her own words. This was probably early 2000s, if I remember correctly. What? What? You think this is okay? It justifies it? And what did we hear in the Talmud? What they were saying to Gentiles? No, it was the Romans that did it. Blame somebody else for what you're doing. This is somebody in Canada also giving a lecture to students. And remember how we're always having these things in the news where, Ben Shapiro, Daily Wire, call it whatever you will. Somebody's always giving a thing like, well, what is the definition of this? Well, if you want my opinion, blah, blah, blah. That's what he does. And he's essentially doing exactly what Bill Clinton did. What is the definition of is? Let's break down that word. It's the same thing that they're doing as you're going to watch in this clip. Who came up with the art of doublespeak? Well, let's hear what she has to say.
And you will say, what? You want us to make you look good? That's not my job. Your job is to make us look good. Our job is not to make you look good, American Jews. What do you have to worry about? Your job is to make us look good. And here's how you do it. Every one of us has to serve 3 years in the Army, 2 years in the Army, some of us 5 years, and then for the rest of our lives, you have got to serve 2 or 3 years in the army of words. You've got to learn to fight the political battle. which is even more important at this point than the military battle that we are. We'll fight the military battle. We're not asking you necessarily to come and be lone soldiers, although some of you can. You've got to learn how to fight back on the campuses, how to make the arguments. Now, they keep shifting. You know, the ground keeps shifting under us. They keep changing the language. Intersectionality wasn't even a word 10 years ago. Now suddenly it's intersectionality. You've got to stay on top of it. And you know how we train for the Army? We don't train for defensive warfare. If the war against Israel ever had to be fought on Israeli soil, do I have to tell you? It's an impossibility. So it's the same thing. Don't let the war of words ever be fought about Israel's nature. Let it be fought about why you can't accept Israel, why you have to single out this tiny people. Try to find Israel on the map. It's hardly there. You know, we used to play this game, Where's Waldo? Where is Waldo on the map? Are you going to really tell me that this is the country you want to blame? Push them. Teach them how to defend by attacking. Teach them really what one says as in fencing. You've got to make demands on them. They've got to serve for 3 years in the army of words.
Well, her words, not mine. I'm just showing you what she said. King David Hotel bombing, I'm going to skip this, but look into it, folks. It happened on July 22nd, 1946. And one of the prime ministers of Israel, Menachem Begin, the father of modern terrorism. The plot of this whole thing was essentially blowing up a intel of what when it was under British rule. It was blowing up intel that the British were collecting on the Irgun organization that were masquerading as Muslim terrorists. And yes, BBC did a documentary with this guy, old age, admitting on camera, yes, we dressed up as Muslims and we framed them for this whole thing. They killed 117 people, a lot of them being their own ethnicity. Why?
Wow.
Because the end justifies the mean, and you framed who for it? Exactly. They're willing to do it to their own people. I think there's another book, Fire and Blood. I think I have another slide. Yes. By Blood and Fire. That was close. By Thurston Clark. You want to read specifically upon that event. You can read about Irgun. In this particular book, A History of Terror. How they, again, Mossad, by way of deception, thou shalt make war. This is their motto. And also buy the book Bloody Zion, because Amazon banned it within like about a month or two of it being up. This is the same author I've been citing for a lot of things. If you want to understand JFK, the Romanov, just a lot of biblical things as well, 9/11, that's a book you want to buy. You can get it from Barnes & Noble. So this is the first prime minister. This is what he said. We must use terror, assassination, and intimidation. We must steal their land and eliminate every social service to free Israel from the Arab population. And this is from his speech and he was a prime minister from 1949 to 1963, and it was a speech given to Israeli officers in 1948 in a biography by Michael Ben Zohar. Not being made up. The Lavon Affair, also nicknamed Operation Susanna, 1954, Israelis activated terrorist cells to respond to the United States making friends with the Egyptian government and a pan-Arab leader, Gamal Abdel Nasser. The Israelis were worried Nasser would nationalize the Suez Canal and continue Egypt's blockade of Israeli shipping through the canal. Israel Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion decided to false flag terrorist attack on American interests in Egypt and would sour the new relationship. And what was the chief target? Civilians. They didn't care. It's always the civilians. And again, this was exposed, and they ended up executing a whole bunch of the guys. But there is a book you can buy. Again, I'm always recommending, don't take my word for it. Don't say I'm biased. Buy the book. I bothered to buy some of this stuff because I actually want to inform some people. I'm going to skip some of the other clips because I know we're getting a little bit into the lengthier thing. But I'm just going to play this one particular one that when you're going to turning point, you good on time?
Yeah.
I got all the time in the world, bro.
I just refueled. I'm good.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So remember when I was saying, by the way, TikTok took this down, so dang the Chinese, they don't like this content. Wink, wink. he goes. This was this year, about a month or 2 or 3 ago, and he goes and asks Charlie Kirk specifically about the USS Liberty incident. Listen to what Kirk says. Turning Point USA. He also has Kenneth Copeland ministry boots. If you know who that guy is, the guy looks like a little demon guy. Oh yeah, God's blessing me with all this wealth and blah blah blah. Looks like he's demon possessed. So look up Kenneth Copeland if
he's
you're a
the
real
best.
Christian. Oh yeah, and I've been to some of these Turning Point USA events. That's how I know. I was there. I saw the booth. I literally wrote it down because I was like, oh, that might be something interesting to follow. Little did I know who it connected to, and when I did, I was over here going, why the heck is this at this event?
That really blue-eyed guy, is that who that is? Like you
Yeah. The short little guy
okay.
with he's got a little pointy nose thing too.
Yeah. Where they do like that interview when he's like just hanging out like on his
in the
SUV.
little airport area.
Yeah,
that
I love
brand
that.
new jet.
Yeah, I love that one. That's a pretty good one.
Anyways, this is him confronting him.
So I have a question. So from America First perspective, why do we give $3.8 billion to Israel, which is more aid than we've given to Africa, more aid than we've given to South America, and more aid than we've given to the Caribbean combined, which is home to 1 billion poor people, especially when they deliberately attacked the USS Liberty in the 1970s?
That is incorrect. Do not peddle conspiracy theories in our event. That is not acceptable. Do not say that.
Okay, Dean Rusk disagrees with you, and he was the Secretary of State at the time, but that's fine.
I never myself accepted the Israeli purported explanation. Accidents don't occur through repeated attacks by surface vessels and by aircraft. It obviously was a decision taken pretty high up on the Israeli side.
That is incorrect. Do not peddle conspiracy theories in our event.
A lot of it, we believe, was covered up. That it was an intentional act by Israel to sink the ship with all hands, no survivors.
That is incorrect. Do not peddle conspiracy theories in our event.
They shouldn't be called an ally. They don't deserve it.
Why do you think they would have bombed the ship?
Their next plan was to attack the Golan Heights. So the troops they had on the Sinai.
What year was this?
To take the Golan Heights. The fact that the
USS Liberty incident?
Yeah.
1967.
Okay.
Yeah, he said 1970s, but he kind of got a little bit butchered up. But it's also interesting.
Like, sometime around there, I know that they had stole boats from the French that they had bought, and then the French were like, "No, you don't get them because you're going to be dicks with them." And
right,
they didn't give them to them. Yeah, and they had to go.
Then they went and stole them.
And right on the heels of the 7-Day War, when you look again the commemorative thing between the French Israeli forces. What was on that thing? They had a plane flying into 2 scrolls that looks just like the Twin Towers. It's like right on the heels of that.
Yeah.
And they're trying to instigate this thing to go on again with Egypt. Why? Because they want the Ben Gurion Canal, which is basically going to supersede the Suez Canal by going further north. And where's it going to cut right through? Dead center where Gaza is right now. And there's a $500 oil reserves right off the coast of Gaza right now. And I'm going to be showing that. 500 billion, I believe. Sorry. I'm going to be showing slides and articles. This has been documented, but are we understanding what's going on? No. We're revisionizing history, and we're saying it's absolutely their land.
Israelis were massacring Egyptian troops, Egyptian prisoners of war. They had so many of them, and once again, they wanted to move all the troops they could to the Syrian border, and they couldn't handle the Egyptian prisoners of war. So they massacred them.
That is incorrect. Do not peddle conspiracy theories in our event.
George Ball, the brilliant and courageous Undersecretary of State at the time of the '67 war, wrote about the attack on the Liberty subsequently. He said, "The ultimate lesson of the Liberty attack was that it had far more effect on policy in Israel than in America. Israel's leaders concluded that nothing they might do would offend the Americans to the point of reprisal. If America's leaders did not have the courage to punish Israel for the blatant murder of American citizens, it seemed clear that their American friends would let them get away with almost anything."
And then the second part is also, you have the Apollo incident in which they illegally stole weapons-grade uranium. The CIA has reports on this.
Anti-Zionist, anti-Semitic
No, I'm not
rhetoric.
anti-Israel. I'm just asking from America's perspective because it's not in our interest. They act
Remember
against
the
our
short
interest.
question part?
Sure. I mean, how is it in our interest that we give this money to Israel?
All right, so it's required that they have to buy American weaponry. Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East, the only place where all three monotheistic religions are allowed to peacefully practice. It's the only country in the Middle East where all three monotheistic religions are represented in their government. It's the only place in the Middle East that has any appreciation for LGBT rights whatsoever. It's the only country in the Middle East that doesn't throw homosexuals off the top of buildings when they find them. It is the only partner that we have in the fight against radical Islamic terrorism. And the subtext of your narrative could be extrapolated to say, well, why on earth would we have a partner like Israel? Guess what? The world's a better place because of Israel.
He's never heard of the UAE, huh?
Or the Talmud, apparently.
Dang, man.
You're sucking real good there, and I don't usually like using vulgaric terms, but like seriously, sorry, Charlie. Sorry, Charlie. Sorry, Charlie, but this is it's not passing the smell test, and I'm laughing. Do you see who was sitting on the stage with him?
I couldn't see. It seemed too dark.
It was
they were kind of
I got bad
his
eyes.
girlfriend. And if you call it his girlfriend, who used to be married to Newsom,
Of course.
again, I've done some little close-ups, and I'm like, I don't think that's a female, and I usually don't like the whole group that goes, oh, you're just. I'm literally like, that is one of the ugliest looking females I've ever seen, because when you zoom past all the Merc makeup on her face, I'm like, its face. I'm just chuckling. And he's also then over here going, well, yeah, gay things is good. Well, I was like, well, what did we stand for then as conservatives? Like, again, I'm not saying I condemn them or crucify them or whatever. What I'm stating is they have the right to do as thou wilt, right? In a sense of, it's not for me to judge or persecute, but I am supposed to uphold standards, and I'm also supposed to call out things that is against my faith. That is what I am called to do as a Christian. You're over here going, no, what they do is totally fine. Otherwise, so which one is it? You tell me you're a Christian, Charlie, but now you're making exceptions for the same group, which I might add has given us the 8 different genders that allegedly is anti-conservative when we're having book readings with somebody that's doing drag. So which one is it, Charlie? Which one is it?
You can't.
Well, you're extrapolating it to conspiracy theories.
You can't say they defend the religion and then say they defend the gays for the religion.
Correct. And again, I was laughing because I went to see a Palestinian comedian, and he brought his 2 friends. One was Gary, and gay Gary. He says that's how we distinguish the 2 guys. And some Republican came over to counter protest. He's like, "You're gay, right? You're gay? Yeah." He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, if you're protesting in their country, they throw you off a roof. What do you think about that? What do you think about that?" And he's over here going, "Yeah, so I have the right to protest any way I want. They want to kill me over there, then that's fine. But I'm protesting in my country that I think they have the right to do that." And he's like, well done, gay Gary. He says, yeah. That's the whole thing, folks, is that one minute you say we have the right to protest, but then you're over here condemning somebody's sentiments of protesting.
Because it's against yours.
For the humanity aspect, not necessarily your sexuality. Again, there's you can still support something 80%.
He's so quick to make it
Semitic. He was.
Yeah, Semitic.
Identity politics, even though they say we're against identity politics.
Like, he didn't even say anything about the Jews. He said Israel.
Yep.
That's not a race.
Yeah, we're talking about a government.
Right. Right. But again, if folks were like zooming in on that, you're like, well, isn't that identity politics, just like with Black Lives Matter? It's like, well, again, one minute you're saying that's identity politics, but if I do the same thing with this particular country, suddenly that's that's bad. But it's the same thing. No, you're anti-Semitic. For calling out history is anti-Semitic. Citing people who've called this out in history is apparently against the narrative. And again, from America First perspective, I think he has a pretty valid point. Why do we? Why do they get free education over there and we don't? Not that I'm promoting communism or whatever. I'm just asking a legitimate question if I'm in society. Why is that? On our dime.
And they shot the ones that were still on board the ship. And they shot the ones that were still on board the ship. Bullet holes, shell holes everywhere, blood. The forecastle, the front part of the ship, was just red with blood.
Throughout the attack, the ship flies the Stars and Stripes, the flag of Israel's closest ally, the United States of America. Its name, the USS Liberty, is freshly painted on its stern, and the bow carries the distinctive numbers of an American naval vessel.
Out of a crew of just under 300. There were 34 killed and 172 injured in varying degrees to life-threatening, life-debilitating injuries. So that was more than 2/3 of the crew.
This audio tape, which has never been broadcast before, was recorded in real time by the Israeli military during the assault. The woman's voice in the background is counting down the seconds. It proves that Israeli commanders knew all along that they were attacking an American ship.
Again, I'm just pulling some of these other things. These are survivors of the event. These were people who were there, and this is what Charlie Kirk is saying is not. Again, there was another clip where Ben Shapiro, and my Ben Shapiro buddy, who's always watching this stuff, and again, if you watch this, then more kudos to you. You got this far. He's always stating, well, it's justifying the casualties. Oh, it's this or this. It's like, no, Ben Shapiro literally said, I don't see how that's relevant to today. But like, he was completely dissing the idea. It's like, no, your people literally attacked us. And he's like, people are always asking me. Well, no, duh. Because the ones who actually studied history, I think this is relevant, is why we never got an apology? And you know what happened? Is that there was a nearby USS carrier, and they're going, hey, we need help. Please, SOS, we're unarmed. We are being attacked. They had no guns on the ship. It was an intel ship. They're making this call. You know what the guy says? All right, we're sending aid. We're going to be sending some jets. They're going to be relieving you. Don't worry. Makes a call to the Admiral McNamara. I think it was around at the time, 1960s. Anyways, he makes the call to this guy. He says, no, do not engage. He's like, I'm sorry, our guys are getting attacked. This is an SOS. It's not really negotiable here. He says, no, bring it back. He's like, all right, maybe because the jets have nuclear warheads. He's like, all right, bring them back, take those off, and then send them right back immediately. Makes a call, tells him what he's just did, and he's over here like, no. He's like, what are you talking about? Our guys are being attacked. They need help. They require our assistance. And you know what he did? He just hands them over to the president, and the president says, no, you will not engage. And kills 2/3 of the crew. Why? Who had you by the to say don't do that? There had to have been something more here.
Napalm. And I'm sure that's what it was.
They didn't want to hear any of that. I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know it till many months later that none of that had been recorded. Looking back on it, it was a total sham.
The U.S. Court of Inquiry reported in just 20 days. It was a rush job, full of spelling mistakes, much key evidence ignored, no Israelis interviewed, and it exonerated them from blame.
I read the Court of Inquiry and realized that my statements had been stricken from the record and never recorded. So I knew then for certain that the cover-up was massive.
The Israelis then rushed out their own report, which concluded that the whole affair was a series of mistakes and that no one was to blame. The only dissenting voice was that of the Israeli ambassador in Washington. He sent a secret telegram back home arguing that Israel was clearly guilty. He cited the audio tape of the attack, the existence of which was known to top Israeli officials, and mentioned the crucial 20-minute gap that followed the Liberty's identification and the launch of the torpedoes against her. He said they should own up to what they had done and put the guilty on trial. His advice was ignored.
So they just get a pat on the back, slap on the wrist, and say it's okay? No apologies? It was just a mistake? You guys are making a lot of mistakes from then to now. You have not improved? You're still hitting hospital? Oh, no, it was them. It was the Hezbollah. Oh, or it was Hamas or whatever. You guys still have not improved with your accuracy? You're still hitting groups that are going out there for aid? You're still targeting journalists? I'm sorry, but if this is your record from, let's say, 1960 to now, let's just say that. Let's not even start when you started. This is your record? I'm sorry. That's pretty deplorable. I'm sorry. That's
Yeah, we've destroyed countries for messing with our boats.
Right. Which is somebody who's been in the military, you would think that, like, okay, you just hit one of our tanks. Excuse me, you mind giving me an explanation?
Yeah.
I
mean, even in the same area, like 1988, you had praying mantis. I mean, we wiped out Iran's navy in 8 hours.
Oh shoot! Dang.
Yeah,
that I didn't know.
Because they touched one of our boats. Like, just Don't.
Don't touch us. You'll be fine.
But see, but they all start over the boats. Every one of these wars starts over the boats.
Where the weaponry's at.
Well, again,
Except for
not of trade
if
to
you're
commerce.
Israel, because then you can mess with the boats and they're just like, don't even get an apology, just oops.
Oops. We'll sweep it under the rug.
Not even our bad.
They sent troop carrying helicopters to finish us off, and for some reason they didn't do it. I guess they got the word that, hey, the gig's up, and so we'll just call it a mistaken identity, and that's what everybody says. It was a mistake. Oh, we're so sorry. We say no to that, and it was a deliberate, premeditated attack.
So they're constantly saying, no, it was not premeditated. Because you want to know something? They attacked also in unmarked planes. Now, at a country of war, are you not supposed to be marking your planes? This is premeditated if you're intentionally going in a co-op operation and you didn't want to be known. That's why you wanted to instigate the war between Egypt.
And you're supposed to have your ship marked, aren't you?
Correct.
With your correct colors before you attack. Like that's just like rules for.
And it's freshly painted. How do you not see that?
Yeah.
Oops. And then you're there for almost 2 hours oopsing. When you're flying around, you didn't go, oh, look, that looks like our ally America. That's no, nothing.
It's like an intel ship. I don't see any guns.
Yeah. And again, they're not shooting back at us. Yay. But for 2 hours, maybe 20, 30 minutes in the heat of the moment, I would understand. But for 2 hours, I call, sorry, that's no. So this is a guy, he wrote a book, The General's Son. He's the son of an Israeli general, a Zionist general. He is giving you an account, and he is an activist against Zionism. But this is his account of, again, another oopsie or a coordinated attack.
We've got the Israeli army, which I like to refer to as one of the best trained, best equipped, best fed terrorist organizations in the world. And yes, they have generals and they have nice uniforms, but their entire purpose is terrorism. And just as one example, I'll give you one example. Almost exactly 4 years ago, as Israel began its attack on Gaza, September the 27th, 2008, at 11:25 in the morning, what I refer to as the most shameful day in the Jewish history, the most shameful day in the history of the Jewish people. Israel began carpet bombing Gaza, and on the first day of what was to be a 21-day attack, they dropped 100 tons of bombs. Okay, a 1-ton bomb will decimate an entire city block. Gaza is one of the most densely populated places in the world. 800,000 children live in Gaza. 11:25 is exactly the time when the morning school shift and the afternoon school shift change. So all the kids are in the streets. All the children are on the streets. That was the moment decided by the decision makers in Israel to begin the attack. This was the first day of a 21-day slaughter that had absolutely no justification. If that's not terrorism, I don't know what is. And this is how the state of Israel manages to control the different populations and somehow still keep up this very sweet liberal kind of face to everything.
So again, I'm not citing from people like, you're just, they're going on rants. They're just simply going after the J word. I'm citing from people that are over there. I'm giving you books that have broken it down historically. I'm showing you clips in history that this is what's been going down. And now I'm going to be giving you the news of why we're not hearing about it. And then I'm going to be breaking down as to why they want us to have a war in this particular region of the world. And then we're done.
You're not telling me that the Jewish lobby in the...
I can't remember this guy's name, but it was with 60 Minutes. He was in the 1950s, 1960s. He's somewhere from over in the Middle Eastern world. But this is his opinion take of what's going on in the news.
The United States pulls the strings of the presidency.
Not entirely, but I think even a little too much, even for Israel interests.
You think the Jewish lobby in the United States is too powerful for the interests of Israel?
I think so. Sometimes they are disserving the interests of Israel because
Explain.
they're pushing around too many people.
How do you mean pushing around?
Well, pressuring, they have many means at their disposal. They are putting up pressure on many, many people. And at the end, I don't think that it will even help Israel.
Why, if this is true, why would the President of the United States pay attention to that lobby?
They are strong.
Strong in what sense?
They are controlling many things.
Controlling what?
Newspapers, medias,
Your Majesty.
banks, finances, and I'm going to stop there.
Well, now wait just a second. You really do believe that the Jewish community in the United States is that powerful? They make the media reflect their view of foreign policy?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
They do not report, we do not report honestly?
Don't mix things, please. I don't say the media. I say in the media they have people. Not the entire media. Some newspapers will only reflect their views, yes.
No. The New York Times, for instance, is owned by the Salzburger family, who are Jewish. Are you suggesting that the New York Times is biased in its treatment of the question of Zionism, Israel's existence, the United States' relationship with the Arab world?
I will have to put all the articles of the New York Times written on this subject and draw the conclusion. You can put this to the computer and it will answer you.
What you're saying is that, yes, you do believe.
Well, let's wait for the answer of the computer.
Washington Post?
The same.
The networks?
Less.
I must say you are speaking with your characteristic candor.
Sorry, that's Shah of Iran, Savak.
I was gonna say, yeah, he's got to be like in Iran. That's
But is he wrong? No, that's pretty dang accurate. Has it changed? No. And this is what I'm telling folks. It was when you can really find an independent journalist, what often happens with them? They get harassed, they get killed, or they're heavily censored because they're getting things out that are over here going like, this is counter to the narrative of what we want the Western to think. Because a lot of people over in the East, they're over here saying all Christianity is under Catholicism. Just look at your Roman Catholic Church. It's like, well, if you knew anything about the Protestant history. But in reverse, what do Westerners know about the Middle East? Those who have not been deployed over there, what would you say the statistics are? Do we really know jack diddly about what's going on over there? No, we don't. The only thing we know is Jesus was a good guy and he was most likely dark tan, whatever. That's all we say over there. That's like, that's the best we got? That's the best we got. Well, it's always been their land. That's what the Bible tells me in the theology guy. Oh boy. Or as they say, oy vey.
Trump says it's a shithole.
Right?
Which he's not completely
wrong. So how come we never hear about that over here? And as I said, this is from Telesar. Abby Martin, this is her doing an interview. This is just a small segment of stuff that she's covered, but this is Hasbara. This is what's influencing your conservative news media. This is how you're not getting a honest side take. So when you're over here saying you're just citing from Al Jazeera or you're just citing from them, this is explaining how you're only getting a certain narrative in the conservative Republican fear of things. Yeah.
It's funny.
Israel's propaganda machine penetrates every sphere of influence, from mass media to social media. In fact, there's a term specifically for Israeli propaganda called Hasbara, which in Hebrew means explanation. 972 Mag describes Hasbara as a form of propaganda aimed at an international audience. It's meant to influence the conversation in a way that positively portrays Israeli political moves and policies, including actions undertaken by Israel in the past. Often, Hasbara efforts include a negative portrayal of the Arabs, and especially of Palestinians. The more the Israeli military ramps up its aggression, the more it ramps up its Hasbara. During that same massacre in Gaza, thousands of sock puppets and Hasbara trolls emerged online to defend the mass killing of civilians and edit history in real time. One Israeli university has more than 400 volunteers working in a Hasbara war room to argue pro-Israel talking points online. Even school courses teach how to edit for Wikipedia, offering prizes like hot air balloon rides for those who complete the most historical revisionism.
I came here to learn more about how we as Israelis and as Jews can defend Israel online, on the internet, and particularly in Wikipedia in this case.
As a way of example, if someone searches the Gaza flotilla, we want to be there. We want to be the guys who influence what is written there, how it's written, and to ensure that it's balanced and Zionist in nature.
The information war extends even to dating websites, like this important information hub, Tinder. According to The Nation, several dating profiles that only displayed pro-Israel messages were created during the siege. Twitter Hasbara ranges from costly promoted tweets by Netanyahu to a never-ending stream of infographics, like this one, which implies that the hundreds of houses being bombed in Gaza were legitimate targets because they contained weapons stockpiles and command centers. Or this cartoon, proving that Israel's moral superiority was the reason civilians in Gaza were dying from its bombs. Their propaganda ignores that even if cases exist where human shields are being used, it's still a war crime to attack them. Nonetheless, the term has become the crux of Hasbara, and it's used to absolve Israel every time it bombs a hospital, refugee center, home, or school.
What Hamas wants to do is have a lot of civilian casualties, and they use this strategy of human shields for a reason, because they think it works. They think that Israel will be blamed for these civilian casualties.
There have been consistent and very credible reports of the civilian population being used as shields by Hamas during the fighting on the ground specifically.
We have video, and you have it in your possession, where Hamas is encouraging their civilian population to run toward targets that Israel has distributed leaflets to stay away from.
In 2014, Israel's economics minister said on CNN, Hamas is conducting massive self-genocide, taking women and children and placing them next to missile launchers. The fact that the kids were playing on the beaches are relevant, said Bennett, because, quote, we find these launchers all over, at the beach, in hospitals, and homes. You have the living room and the missile launching room. Israel has to make ridiculous cartoons showing resistance forces in Palestine using human shields, because it has no actual evidence. Yet the term is repeated without question across the establishment press to justify its bombing of civilians. In The Independent, Myth of Hamas Human Shields, it reads, some Gazans have admitted they were afraid of criticizing Hamas, but none have said they have been forced by the organization to stay in places of danger and become unwilling human shields. Amazingly, Israel is the one with a documented history of using human shields.
Every accusation is a self-admission.
Israel has a CIA of its own. That's pretty interesting.
Pretty much, and we've collabed and
it's pretty much the Israeli version of a CIA.
Yes. And you can look this up on several other sites. This was just a guy that I admire on Instagram, but Zaraf Media. Israel announces a 9 million campaign. 9 million. Money that we're donating to them. They're spending 9 million campaign to influence U.S. public upon opinion of Gaza. That's important. What did she say?
They're spending 9 million of our money to influence us. That's awesome.
That gets recycled right back to how we think. Because what did I say? What ultimately pulls the trigger? The government, the soldier, or the ideology? It is the mind. You control the mind. You make your little soldiers do their dance, and that's what everybody will believe. And don't believe me about PragerU. This is on their own website.com. Marissa Straight, CEO of PragerU, was born in Los Angeles and moved to Israel at a young age, where she completed her primary education and served in the military intelligence, aka Mossad, Unit 8200 of the Israeli Defense Forces. You really are going to tell me she's not influencing the Republican conservative side and giving out these oh, look, do we have this one Palestinian guy saying don't support this particular group documentary come out to influence public diplomacy? Literally, you look it up on hasbarafellowship.org. Can't provide a description for this page right now. Yeah, it is a public relations efforts to disseminate abroad positive information about the state of Israel and its actions. Positive. What is that by definition? Propaganda, which is only hearing the narrative and the side of the and perspective that you want to hear. That is exactly what who we were accusing in World War II of doing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They were doing it just as bad, if not worse.
Yes, exactly. This is Ted Pike. Again, look up his other stuff. I did the other Israel. This is the other one breaking down AIPAC. I already covered that enough with you guys.
Jerusalem.
Don't believe me when the other guy was saying, "Oh, they're going after the kids. They're winking war on kids." This is another clip from BBC talking about something similar.
Jerusalem. The army would not let Four Corners film inside.
I've been behind these walls 3 times. I saw children shuffling across the courtyard, handcuffed and shackled. Some hearings lasted 60 seconds. I saw one boy shout the name of his prison so his mother would know where he was being held. I saw the judge convict some children without even once looking at them. Through it all, what I saw was a conveyor belt of convicted children.
So they use human shields, they make war against kids, and they justify their war crimes against Palestinians.
What are they convicting them of?
Right. Well, some of them, you can look up a couple articles of this if you're fortunate. They are throwing stones and rocks at tanks just to say, stop, go away, stop oppressing my mother, you killed my brother. And in another one of the Abby Martin things, whether you want to take her for real or not, but given all these other clips I've given you, she was stating that a good portion of the young men are already been in prison by the time they reach the age of 18. So you're getting literally people that are going, yeah, I've already done time for standing up against something that killed my mom, killed whatever. And now there's this group coming over saying, do you want to join the resistance, son? Heck yeah, if we're going by Hollywood movie standards, would you not go, frick yeah? I was technically a slave or whatever. Probably doing prison labor, I would imagine. I'm sure they're not sitting around doing nothing. And also, given what we've heard
around writing a book called Mein Kampf. I mean, geez.
Right. And given what we've already read about the Talmud, do you really think behind closed doors they're not doing things with those kids? Do you think that would not be
what they do to kids, man? That's a yeah.
You really think those kids are not going to say, heck yeah? Because I mean, like, Bonnie and Clyde. Did you know that Clyde was freaking boinked in jail? Yeah, a lot of people don't know that in history, but it's like when you break that down, you're going, yeah, that'd make me a little bit pissed at the world too. I'll make myself a record so nobody would ever do that to me. So, given what we know now about the kids, given how we make war against these kids, listen to ex-Mossad agent talk about a particular guy we hear about in the news, but we never hear about who really was controlling him.
That it was your employer, Robert Maxwell, owner of the Daily Mirror. You say that he was an Israeli agent, and as was his daughter.
He was not my employer. I would like to correct that.
Okay.
We worked together with him.
And you say that his daughter Ghislaine also, though, worked for Israel, and it was Robert Maxwell who introduced Jeffrey Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell way before the 1990s, as mainstream media is reporting.
Correct.
I suppose what the most alarming allegations that you've been making are that the entire Epstein operation was a honey trap operation to entrap politicians, policymakers, celebrities, people in the media eye, basically to become Israel's assets.
Correct. That it became basically an intelligence operation to entrap different politicians.
Want to read more? One Nation Under Blackmail, Volume 2 by Whitney Webb. Phenomenal book, and you learn how Trump is heavily tied to this, and it was likely through their modeling agency how Trump met Melania. Yeah. So he has connections with this, and now I'm tying it into what's going down current news, and we're almost done. So Economist Magazine back in 2012-13, my buddy, don't know how he came to this conclusion. He's saying, well, how do you know they didn't see the magazine and thought they'd replicate it? A primitive people, allegedly, right, third world country, who doesn't get a yearly subscription to a magazine that has nothing to do with them milking goats and raising their families, most of the population, let's just go with that, statistically speaking. You really think they're going to go, hey, that's an idea, is fight on hang gliders with Hamas and Netanyahu at the top of the page? I'm sorry, but that's kind of really eerie, but you know how they already did predictive programming with 9/11? I call that predictive programming for us. Ironic that it's October 7th. I'm reading this book, and it says Dionysus, which is an equivalent of Nimrod, or in the French rendered, Denis. His father, Festum Dionysi, was held every day on the 7th of October at the end of the vintage season. After 2 days of the wild partying, another feast was held, Festum Dionysi something, country festival of the Merry Dionysus. The papacy cleverly brought worshippers of Dionysus into the jurisdiction by transferring the words Dionysus, Bacchus, blah, 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 into a group of Christian martyrs. October 7th was entered into the liturgical calendar of the feast day of St. Bacchus the Martyr, while October 9th was instituted as the festival of St. Denis. Blah, 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 blah. And again, Dionysus, you know what he is? Masked god of theater, aka Corona. And now they're having another event on October 7th, occurring with a special god. Yeah.
On October 7th.
If dates are significant to these guys, and you know what I'm saying? Oh, remember October 7th. It's their equivalent of 9/11. Ah, we're going to be wrapping up with that one. So, I don't even have to play the whole thing. I'm just going to give this little clip. You know who created Hamas?
The Palestinian militant group Hamas has carried out brutal acts of terror against Israeli civilians, and Israeli and American leaders are always keen to tell us how dangerous and evil Hamas is.
The inhumanity of Hamas.
I have no sympathy for Hamas.
That keep shelling Israel with thousands of rockets and mortar shells.
But what if I told you that Israel helped create Hamas? Officially, Hamas, which is the acronym for an Arabic phrase meaning Islamic resistance movement,
What was it? Islamic resistance movement. It's literally in the name that they're resisting.
Founded in 1987, at the start of the first Palestinian Intifada, or uprising against the Israeli occupation. But its roots were planted much earlier. The Hamas founder Sheikh Ahmed Yassin was a half-blind, disabled Palestinian cleric and member of the Muslim Brotherhood. The Brotherhood had been repressed by the Egyptians in Gaza prior to 1967, but once the Israelis invaded and occupied the Strip, they didn't just turn a blind eye to these Islamists, they encouraged them. See, the Israelis, especially right-wing Israelis, wanted to undermine the power of the dominant Palestinian political force at that time, the nationalist PLO, at the heart of which was the secular Fatah party of Yasser Arafat, their bête noire.
بغصن الزيتون في يدي وببندقية الثائر في يدي.
By empowering Sheikh Yassin and the Muslim Brotherhood, Israeli leaders thought they could divide and rule the occupied Palestinians, play them off against each other, secular nationalists against religious Islamists. So in 1978, when Yassin wanted to officially register his Islamic Association, which was basically the precursor to Hamas, the Israelis were only too keen to help. Yassin built and grew a network of Islamist social institutions across Gaza, including schools and clubs and mosques, and Israel helped fund some of those projects. Most American politicians have no clue about any of this, although the former Republican Congressman Ron Paul once made this point on the floor of the House.
Hamas was encouraged and really started by Israel because they wanted Hamas to counteract Yasser Arafat.
Arafat himself told an Italian newspaper, quote, Hamas is a creature of Israel. He even claimed that former Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin admitted as much to him, calling it a fatal error. Now, you might be wondering, why should I believe mad Ron Paul or the famously shady Yasser Arafat? Well, you don't have to. You can believe top Israeli and US officials who've basically owned up to all this. Brigadier Yitzhak Segev, for example, who was the Israeli military governor in Gaza, and later told a New York Times reporter that he helped finance the Islamic movement. The Israeli government gave me a budget, he said, and the military government gives to the mosques. Colonel David Hakam, who worked in Gaza in the late 1980s as an Arab affairs expert in the Israeli military, has admitted that the original sin was Israeli support for Yassin in the late 70s. But at the time, he has argued, nobody thought about the possible results.
So I think that's enough there, but you get the gist. Who created who? Chicken or the egg? They created it, and it's now literally still a resistance force. Can it still be controlled by Masons? Or what would be the equivalent over there? Oh, shoot. I'm trying to blank. Begins with an S with the Islamic group. I'm forgetting. Whatever. but a mystical portion of that particular region. But do you think that the head leaders, again, control leaders, and then you already get willing victims that are going to say, yeah, I would love to join this group, right? You control the opposition. Same freaking narrative, just like they do with the CIA. Create the bad guy, then you eliminate him when you need to.
Yep.
Just like what they do with the leader of the Black Panthers. Same thing. Guy could have started talking, got to eliminate him. So, I think this is one of my last clips, if I'm not mistaken. We're almost done. This is a gal. I absolutely loved her. She left doing We On television in India, started doing her own independent thing with another group of media. This is her take on right after October 7th. The things that we saw in the West, complete lie.
Let's start our next story with some pictures. Pictures and videos that have gone viral. The first one is of a supposed Hamas attack. It was shared widely on social media. People called it an air assault on Israel. Turned out it was footage from a video game. The second video is this one. It's a video from TikTok. It shows paragliders crossing a boundary. Social media called it...
That's Arma 3. I have that one.
Turned out the visuals were from Egypt. And they were shot sometime last year. But in the last few days, these pictures have been shared more than 900,000 times. The third video is of a rocket attack. It shows a salvo of rockets being fired. Social media claims these are Hamas rockets. They say the rockets are being fired at Tel Aviv. The video turned out to be an old one, and it wasn't even from Gaza. It was from Syria a few years ago.
So anyway, she goes on to talk about how Elon Musk on Twitter has eliminated all fact checkers. The stuff has gone viral. You think it's a coincidence that it goes right off the heel and then this thing happens? Yeah, and then EU was hitting him with, you're literally letting misinformation take lies because of what you let get out. But do we know this in the Western world? No. Have we retracted our statements? No. But this is the stuff that we're over here going, you saw the hang gliders, right? You saw the attack. Like Trump said on Hannity, oh yeah, I could show you footage. Oh yeah, so why would Americans support that? I don't know, but we need to deport those people that are causing problems in our country that are supporting these wild, crazy people. What? The things that we saw that are a lie? Now, dispensationalism is Zionism for Gentiles. Why? Because the guy who wrote it was a convicted con man. So basically the version we're getting of the Bible that it's still a sacred land, right? Like you hear most Christians, again, this is a joke, but I'm a Christian. I don't believe in races. Those of Israel, God made them above all of us.
I do have a question about that entire hang glider narrative when they came in and took a bunch of, or captives or whatever, right? Hostages. What'd they do? Fly back?
Oh yeah, how did they get out, right? And how come it took so long to respond?
They just they just walked back, or I mean, you obviously can't fly with more than just the two dudes that were on it.
It's like infiltrate, but then it's over here like, okay, if we're doing it like Red Dawn style, right? You send in the paratroopers, but then or hang gliders in this case, but then what do you send in? Reinforcements. That is like 101 if you're actually going to do a full raid. No, we're going to run in, and then you have bikes, you have motorcycles, all the vehicles that are there, they're still sitting there. From some other clip that I was seeing, there's like they didn't even bother. And a lot of clips, from what I've heard, I was not able to get it because I think they tried to scrape it from the internet, but they were allegedly, I'm just throwing that out there. They were saying there were helicopters controlled by the Israeli IDF, and they were shooting their own people. Regardless if the helicopter thing is true or not, even in a top Israeli newspaper has stated it was Mossad that attacked their own people that day. But do we hear about that in the light? No, because it's going to ruin the official narrative. Yeah. Anything else? Okay. Anyways, this girl retorts with this, oh, those are the races and stuff like that. She says, Zionism sounds like a racial superiority doctrine. Their Talmud calls us Gentiles goyim, a Hebrew derogatory term meaning cattle. It's like my aunt at my church. I was saying, are you familiar with it? Huh? What are you talking about? We need to pray for them. Okay. A better way, because dispensationalism still says there's a sacred land. Dispensationalism still says there's a holy people. False. False, because of what Christ did. If you're still saying that, then you're not a Christian. If you're dispensationalist or you still see them as a no. Because a better way to redefine dispensationalism, which is influenced by Scofield's Bible, is seeing it as code for the Scofield translation of the Bible, which introduces the racial teachings of the Talmud and Darwinianism of Gentile Goyim versus God's chosen people. If you don't agree or align with this interpretation of scripture or history, you are anti-Semitic. Dispensationalism is essentially a Zionist ideology to lull the ecclesia into a Stockholm Syndrome stupor of compliance and not vocally condemn the synagogue of Satan. And you know who distributed this guy's Bible into seminaries in the West? The same guy who established RIRS on Jekyll's Island, Jacob Schiff, Rothschild's agent.
Really?
So if you don't like the IRS, but you're still supporting dispensationalism, you are a moron. You are a definition of an oxymoron of hypocrisy. I did this just to show all the stuff that we've covered before. Most Americans have no idea about any of these events. But you'll always say, oh, yeah, but I will perk up when it says it's always been their land. It's God's chosen people, our greatest ally. God blesses those who bless Israel. Pray for No. And I called my buddy. I literally said it to his face. I said, you're an imperialist buckethead. Because anything Ben Shapiro says, Ben Shapiro says they're evil. Oh, they're evil. Matt, you've been over there. You can understand. Okay, I'm open to hearing what you have to say. Him? Well, that's just civilian casualties. It's collateral damage.
Yeah, we're imperialists.
Well, yeah, I'm like, dude, here's the thing. If your little daughter, who's now just starting school, and there was a bomb that hit her thing, would you hate the freaking Russians or whoever was invading us? Absolutely. Would you fight against a resistance force if our military wasn't able to combat that? Absolutely. But now when you hear about it in the Middle East, you're going, collateral
Those are the
damage.
bad guys. Those are the bad guys, though.
Are you the bad guys? Again, I don't have to go into full detail, but I laughed because I saw this with the show, The Boys. This is what America does. It's beautiful imagery in the sense of this is how dispensational evangelicals are when they're supporting the Whore of Babylon ideologies that are saying we need a modern crusade to go over there. It's the same freaking thing. You suck at the teat of the Whore of Babylon while you kiss the feet of the synagogue of Satan. It's the same thing. I could skip all that. Okay, so Star Rem fan, just breaking this down, we're done. They want to split the atom. This is a star that has nothing to do with King David. It has nothing to do with something of God. God's not a God of symbols or of signs. He is a God of his word, which was fulfilled through Christ. 743, Acts 743 and Amos 5:26 condemn this as the star of Remphan, which connects directly back to Moloch and Baal worship and Nimrod. What does it represent? Transhumanism. We have the celestial alchemy knowledge to combine all these things and create our own God. As above, so below, so without, as the universe, so the soul. Hermes Trismegistus, it's the same thing as your Baphomet guy here. It's the Satanist ideology, yes, but it was encapsulated in Nimrod's son in their religion. This is who you're supporting when you're saying pray for this particular country. When you put this particular star sign out, you are supporting transhumanism. And what they believe, and the thing that I skipped over here, is saying that they believe that they'll be able to, and the sacred serpent of the Kabbalah teaches the coming messianic age shall rise from the abyss to conquer the Gentiles, God's chosen, the Jews. This Leviathan, the holy piercing serpent, is expected to be the Messiah prophesied to appear, the one who will supernaturally possess the bodies of the world's Jews and lead them to global domination and glory. How come you're not destroying the Romans, Lord? My kingdom is not of this world. That's what your Messiah is going to do for you. That's what all the world religions that you see in all these different things, Church of Satan, Hindu, I'm not even sure what one that is, but you see it all over the place. Even the Pope having it on his hat. It is essentially stating that I am pro-transhumanism. And again, like the old gender thing, the sign that we showed this, I think, before to you guys, but the sign of Mercury, which traces directly back to Baal, it is the sign for transgenderism. Yeah. That's the thing that you're supporting when you're doing all this posting of the flag. And it's fulfilling the empire of iron and clay. What they want is to eliminate the state of Israel. That is the goal. If folks did not know this. Why? Because they want to have a cyber state. What's the cyber state? You become a cyber citizen of the web. What they want by 2027 in the US is to have it where your social security is how you log in online. Interesting year, isn't it? When they want to have Armageddon and they have that prophecy thing with Trump. Guys like you and I are going to be kicked out. Why were they creating 5G towers during 2020? Who was the guy that signed this all into, as I did before with you guys? It was Trump. Are you ready for the future, my brother? Masons, Kabbalah, this is what they think, is that they'll be able to live on forever through creating their own bodies. And just finishing up with this, the United Nations is a Jewish concept from A to Z. Note, the UN's first act was to establish the state of Israel, which is its primary objective. Ben Gurion. And what their flag represents is the river Euphrates and the Nile. This is the greater Israel they have planned. That's what those two blue stripes represent. This is the New World Order capital. That's why they want you to always go over there and fight for them, because you're expanding their empire for Nimrod. The oil reserves for $500 billion. Ben Gurion, 15 days before the October 7th attack at the UN National Assembly, is showing the Greater Israel map on September 22nd of 2023. It is a map of the new Middle East without Palestine.
Before it.
And now you have an Israeli patch of the Greater Israel on his shoulder. That's a lot of land of oops.
Oh, yeah.
And what were they showing in theaters at the same time for this oil war that they were doing? Killers of the Flower Moon, which is the premise of what? White men killing the indigenous people off their land for what? Oil. And this is exactly what they're doing as of March 31st, 2024, this year. Land for sale, buy in Israel, Indian land for sale. It's the same thing. So when people's like, oh, you're just trying to compare the Native Americans, it's the same thing. It's imperialism. That is what we're talking about. So, and why would they want this? As the last slide. They want the New World Order because this is where Mithra, aka Tammuz, had his base of operation. This is why they want the angels let loose from under the river Euphrates. Don't believe me? Well, their Messiah figure is not Jewish. He eliminates the enemies of the Jews. This is the same pattern on NASA, Space Force, guy. This is the same pattern on his cheekbone. Does that look a little bit more accurate as opposed to this map that we saw before? Yeah.
Come
Satan's
on.
first space program wasn't allowed by God, but now all of a sudden we're totally cool with Space Force and everything that Musk is doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, gentlemen, apologize for the length, but I think it gives a lot of clarity to the viewers of what the frick is going on, why they want
A
you
lot
to...
of information, but good information for sure.
We never care about the lengths.
Okay. Oh gosh, 113. Gosh, I was trying to go short. I'm sorry.
We're always, that's exactly what we have you on for. We're here for it. We allot the time. We'll go 10 freaking hours if that's what it's got to be. Sometimes it takes a while to get to it, you know. It takes a while. You got to fill in the blanks. And sometimes that's what
it's
like you said. You get part 1 and 2, though. People don't tune in for the second part, or they never heard the first part, or you get something stupid here. So
it's all in one place. Now folks can watch it with their husband, wife, whatever. People that are cognitive dissonance say, hey, listen, I don't know if these guys are right, but I think these are some books we could probably buy and maybe have a study in history, especially if there's a power outage on the grid. You have time to catch up. Just saying, folks, never know.
It's crazy how, too, in 1918, they were making anti-Semitism illegal through the same powers that created the Holocaust, basically.
Yes.
It's like...
I'm just amazed a religion became a race.
Yeah.
Right? An ideology is now equated in the same breath as ethnicity. It's like, wait a minute.
You can't do that. I'm a Christian. Like, when do I get to play that card? You anti-Christianite.
But it's just like the LGBT community. It's like, I'm still waiting for my letter of acceptance. Pun, but you know, where's the S? Where's for straight? Where no?
Yeah.
Doesn't count?
And the B, I mean, what does that mean?
That's not a real thing.
Yeah, how can you be bisexual if there is more than one?
You're gay.
Oh, let's work with this.
You can't be bi if there is more than one.
Figuring out the math on this. See?
I love it.
Right on. Well,
I
that was
think we need to
another
drop the beat.
episode. Brandon, tell people where they can find you as always.
Yeah, Mana Daily Podcast, Rumble, Spotify, and YouTube. Right now, Spotify is acting up, so I'm not sure if that's a temporary fluke on the app. Or I'm going to try to log back in. And then occasionally I'll upload to BitChute, and then Krollology, like my name on the screen, Laura _101. And yeah, if you can support on Patreon and you're not getting raging mad at me right now, that would be great. And if you can't, that's absolutely fine as well. But you guys do help me have the time to dig up the research for this. It's lengthy, but it's thorough, as you can see. That's what I always tell folks. It's like, you want a Joe Rogan? Well, I'm thorough too. I'll bring up the receipts for you.
Exactly. Everybody, support him, follow him, pray for him. Whatever you do, do it. You know, that's all we ask.
Yes.
Matt, what do you think?
Think that was another good show.
Hell yeah, man. And we'll see you guys next time.